How about now? Check, check, check. 1, 2. Why isn't the microphone working? Still nothing, huh, Beck? You can hear me now? Oh, you can hear me now. All right.
I can hear you.
We are back and we are ready to roll. Okay, good. Thank you, Dan. My guy Nelly as well, the whole crew. Thank you, guys. We're trying to work on this. All right, we're back. Big show today, and we started out in a big way with our guy, the one and only Ian Beckles. Turn it sideways. People want to see the. There we go.
Yeah.
Man, look a little nippy out there, buddy.
It's beautiful outside. What are you talking about?
God, I love this weather. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, man. That's why we live in Florida, Playboy.
I know, man. I know. Check out Ian Beckles, all social media platforms. We'll talk some in the trenches stuff here in a bit. We'll start with Indiana. I mean, it was a tough putt going against that Ohio State Buckeyes team. They had to play almost a near perfect game, but they just couldn't do that. I still think they're going to make the playoff, Ian, but it's tough. Some really good wins this year, but it was a tough loss to Ohio State there.
Listen, Indiana being 10-1 is a story in itself. But, watching that game, I just saw a young team that maybe the stage was a little bit too much for them. Ohio State is clearly a better team. But if you say to me that your only loss is in Ohio State, I'm not sure there's a better loss in the country. So a lot of other teams lost. I just don't want to hear somebody talking about three loss SEC teams, because Indiana beat everybody in front of them. They beat Nebraska worse than Ohio State did. So to that point, Indiana did what they were supposed to do. They just didn't show up on Saturday, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy how we see what the rankings are right now. We see in the AP rankings that Alabama is still 13th. They're 8-3. They've lost 3 games, and they're still 13th ranked. And they go, oh, well, they beat this team, they beat that team. You lost to a 5-5 Oklahoma team.
Right.
And I understand how strong the SEC is, but how come it's their wins weigh that much more than their losses? I don't get that. There's other teams out there. They look. I mean, I heard somebody say like, "Oh, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. They shouldn't be in there." Like, it was a close game. They lost on a field goal. I know Northern Illinois isn't good, but Alabama got smoked. They scored 3 points against a team that was 5-5, and they're still in the top 15. Like, there's definitely SEC bias out there. They are the strongest conference. I don't disagree with that, but their losses aren't as weighed as heavily as other teams. 100%.
Well, listen, Jay. I'm a Big Ten guy, okay? And for many years, I've just had to say the SEC is king. I'm not sure anymore. I'm not, because Michigan won last year. And if you talk about the top of the Big Ten right now with Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon, I would put those 3 teams against anybody's conference team. So when you say that the SEC is king, it has been king, but I'm not sure it is right now. And, Luke getting mollywopped by Oklahoma, you got to be out. Like, I don't care what your name is. You got to go. You can't have 3 losses and still be up there. That's almost saying when you start the season, Alabama, there's nothing you can do to screw yourself out of being in the top 12. So I just don't think that's fair to everybody else. I just think we're giving out those teams too much credit.
Yeah, it's funny you say that Indiana has the best loss. Like, Ohio State's only loss is to Oregon. So, I mean, you look at how strong the Big 12 is, the Big 10, with all those good teams. I mean, those 4 teams right there, Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. Then Michigan put up a 50-burger yesterday or Saturday. So you just never know, man. Some good football out there. We also saw some good football from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over at the Dignitary Tea and Kava House there on Sunday with the crew. More of how good the Bucs look or how bad the Giants look in that game, Ian?
I think it's a little of both. The Buccaneers probably looked as rounded of a team as I've seen all year.
They look well balanced. They look balanced in that game, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants weren't going to score a lot of points in that game, and it just seemed like offensively they were able to do whatever the hell they want to, and they haven't done that in a while. The Giants are, as you know, Jay, and my business partner next to me, Tom Ponzo, knows.
Ponzo!
The Giants are going through some stuff, man. Like, when you got a $40 million quarterback that gets benched in the middle of the season, and some of the players are saying that it's the wrong move, and then he gets cut, and then you take your second string and make him third string, and that's a lot. to look at the players in the face and say, let's go out and fight after that. And I think the Giants fought just like a team that didn't have anything to fight for. Like, if your organization stops fighting, sometimes the players stop fighting. And I just didn't see a Giants team. Lawrence, did you hear his name yesterday?
Just that one time when we said, hey, there's Dexter Lawrence. That was it.
He didn't do a thing all game long. So I don't know, if I don't like to say people lay down, but the Giants are, maybe their bags are packed already.
Yeah, and it's ugly. I mean, you got Tommy Cutlets out there. They might as well put Tom Ponzo in there to start slinging the rock. Put Tom Ponzo under center. I think they would have a better chance. You hear Ponzo in the background. But looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they needed that win, right, to kind of set things on the right path here in the second half of the season. And I just look at we'll start with the running back situation. Bucky Irving getting the majority of the looks over guys like Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. They did find time for those guys, but man, Bucky Irving, I know you made a comment yesterday about like him not being necessarily the best running back, but what is it about his game then, if he's not quote unquote a traditional running back, that makes him so effective in this Liam Cohen offense?
Well, I think as spectators and Buck fans, we like to evaluate people on obviously the results, and it makes sense. These coaches watch these guys every day in practice. So for Rachaad to be the starting running back still tells me that Bucky doesn't do some things well. Okay, so whether it's, you can say, oh, we'll just put him in when we're not passing. It doesn't work like that. Okay, then other teams sniff that out and they're gonna game plan accordingly. Bucky, I think, is the most dynamic runner we have. I don't know if he's the best runner, okay? If you say which runner do you want in the open field, it's Bucky, period. Behind the line of scrimmage, which runner do you want? I might want taking Rachaad, because I saw Bucky miss a couple holes yesterday, and I like the kid, but I like to concede to the coaches when it comes to roles for players, because they know these guys. It's easy to say that guy should be here, should be there. Don't you think the coaches have thought about that? If the radio has been saying about it every day, don't you think the coaches have thought about putting Bucky as a starting running back? They want to win as much as we do, and probably 10,000 times more. So, once again, they know what they're doing, and there's a reason why Rachaad's still starting, and I think that he is the more rounded back, although he's not a real flashy runner. He's almost, he's a middle-of-the-road runner.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of ironic, too, that he does the things usually that a third down back would be good at. He's probably a better pass protector. He's better at catching the ball out of the backfield. Not that Bucky's not, but Rachaad, like, he does those two things well, like almost like what a specialized or a specialty running back does. You mentioned not hearing the name Dexter Lawrence. We also didn't really hear the name Justin School yesterday, and that bodes well when you don't have Tristan Wirfs in there, and we all know how you feel about a guy like Tristan Wirfs who really hit the ground running in his NFL career. But what did you think of the offensive line yesterday? Because I know they didn't mention Dexter Lawrence's name, but you get Kayvon Thibodeau back from injury. You have Brian Burns in there. This is one of the better pass rushers in the league, and they were equalized in a big way by that Bucs O-line.
Yeah, and listen, you have to give a team credit. You got to give the Bucs O-line credit because they dominated that game, run game, pass game, period. And I almost wish that Liam Cohen would have came out and run the ball more, because I think that would have been a signature game if he would have gave, each, had 40 totes or something. I just don't know the Giants could have stopped them. Right. I don't remember a single run where a running back did anything all that glorious. But there was just big old holes, and sometimes the running back is going 15 yards before he gets touched. That's on the offensive line. And this team, this Buccaneer team, it's weird because the record's not great, but you can't tell me this is not a good football team. Because, I mean, they beat the Lions, you beat the Eagles, you almost should have beat San Francisco and Kansas City. I hate to say should have because you lost. Right. But this is a team that can compete with anybody, and we're missing some serious pieces. So it was 2 weeks ago I heard everybody wanting to fire Todd Bowles, and I just think it's an ignorant narrative that anytime a coach falters at all, regardless of, injuries or situations, they want to fire them instantly. I hear people, we got to fire Mike Tomlin. Are you effing kidding me? What the hell? How long do you think it would take for Mike Tomlin to get a job? Everybody would give away their coach for Mike Tomlin. So I just want to give some love to Todd Bowles. I think he's doing a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, what do you say to people like that are just they're so quick to get rid of Bowles and then no credit whatsoever yesterday to, hey, the team came out of the bye, because we've seen at times this team doesn't come out of the bye great. They come out of the bye, they don't get too high, they don't get too low, even with some of the guys still out. I mean, they're still able to go out there and play. Like Todd Bowles, what does it say about him being respected? Like, what does that mean from you as an ex-player? Because I think people forget about that. They look at like the decisions when to go for it on fourth down and things like that, when to throw challenge flags. But when you respect a coach, when there's that much love for a guy like that, like what does that mean for you as a player? I mean, you're already self-motivated, but what does that entail as far as like not giving up or staying with it when you're on a 3, 4, 5 game losing streak?
Well, it's funny. Tom and I just had this conversation, and we're talking about playing for coaches. Nobody plays for the coach, okay? Everybody plays for yourself, and you play for your self-pride. Now, when the locker room gets lost, which does happen, people start acting funny, okay? That's a fact. To me, I just think it's a testament to Todd Bowles having the right guys in the locker room. I really do, because those guys are always fighting. I never see the Buccaneers giving up, and I think Baker Mayfield has a lot to do with it. I thought Tom Brady had a lot to do with it. Levante David, Vita Vea, Tristan Wirfs, you keep on going. But the Buccaneers have always had those leadership type players in the locker room to keep things together, whether it's a JPP, whoever the hell it's been throughout the years. But you have to have the right players. Because, listen, I coached at Chamberlain High School this year, and I thought Chad and myself and the other coaches did a pretty darn good job. But at the end of it, you can't make that chicken salad. You know what I'm saying? You have to have players that are motivated and that give a crap. And the fact that these guys go out there every week and they compete makes me think that he has the right players.
What'd you think of Mike Evans yesterday?
What do I think of Mike Evans every time he plays? I mean, I'm so tired of saying that Mike Evans can't be good again this year. I've been saying it the last 7 years, I think. Mike Evans is always hurt. Mike Evans is always coming back. We're better with Mike Evans. I don't know what else you want to say. Without Mike Evans, we win yesterday because the Giants are just abysmal, but we don't get as many big plays without Mike Evans. With Mike Evans in the lineup, this offense just moves better because now people are scared of somebody. Kate Otten, is getting his fees. He didn't get that much yesterday, but he's not scaring nobody. Mike Evans is still a scary individual, even in his age.
Before I let you go, who's been your favorite team to watch this year? Plays Ian Beckles football, runs the football, plays good defense, and could possibly make a long jaunt of it into the postseason.
It's not close for me. It's been the Lions the last 2-3 years. When I watch them play, I just get it. Like the Lions, first down, 1 yard, run the ball for 1 yard. Second down, run the ball for 5 yards. They just are 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 all the time. They're not scared to run the ball 3-4 times in a row. That goes so darn far, and I think Goff has come a long way. And I just like to feel. I like to feel they play hard. They don't ease up when they're up 20 points. They're still foot on the throttle. I like the Lions. It's hard to win a Super Bowl, my friend, because if you play against the Mahomes or something like that, and you give them 8 seconds, you never know. It might be too much time.
That's right, man. All right, what do you got going on this week? Let everybody know about the digs and the in the trenches and all that jazz.
Well, you got all my good stuff before I actually did my In the Trenches podcast, so. But I like everybody to still tune in the Trenches. I've been doing it for, I want to say, 10, 12 years now. It's been a while. And then after that, I'm hanging out at the Dignitary Cafe. We're getting things back in order. And go out there and support your small businesses. A lot of small businesses are still hurting out there. And we're on the corner of West Shore and Gandy, 4817 South West Shore Boulevard. Jay hangs out here to watch the games. It's just it's a good look. It's a good feel.
It's a nice chill vibe with Ian, Tom, and the fellas. Sure. Yeah, In the Trenches on all social media. Follow Ian on Instagram as well. He loves putting it on there. Some really, really good stuff, and we got some good things in store for you the rest of this year and in 2025. Beck, I love you. I appreciate you. Give Pons my best. And Pons, you telling me? Ian Beckles Show on YouTube. Thank you, Ponzo. Look at that. Doing it all.
Right
Pons,
next to me doing that work.
I appreciate it. All right, man. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
One love, brother.
All right, buddy. The one and only Ian Beckles. Yeah. All right. So the audio was a little jacked up there, but Ian and everybody confirmed that we are good. Welcome to the Recher podcast, everybody. I appreciate everybody for tuning in on this Monday. It is a victory Monday after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeat the New York Giants on Sunday up there at MetLife to kind of, all right, let's get this season moving in the right direction. Plenty to get into today. Just been kind of thinking about a couple of things. I was having a good discussion with my buddy Kemper, who's in town from Colorado, and just discussing my attitude towards the podcast, like the rest of this year and going forward, and just showing a little bit more of my personality and being a little bit more open and transparent to what I've got going on. So that's what my goal is going to be for the rest of the time here doing the Recher podcast, just having fun with it, just like you saw me years ago. Regardless of the topic, whether it's sports or not, gonna have a lot of fun here. And you could see that nobody else is going live right now. No longer with, the radio station. So you're not getting any live and local sports right now from the Tampa Bay area, but you are going to get it right here on the Recher podcast. So I continue to implore you to support the local. Ian just mentioned it. Dignitary Tea and Kava House. Go check them out. 4817 South West Shore Avenue. Go on over there. Go check them out. Go get you a shell of kava. Create them. Hang out. It's a nice chill vibe over there. Again, support me on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on that YouTube page. A big, big help. And you see today, I'm rocking the Tampa Bay made t-shirt from my friends at Ingrained Apparel. I've known my guy Gab for almost 20 years now. He used to coach his little brother. His pops is one of my best friends. Ingrained Apparel. Check them out. They are blowing up here in the Tampa Bay area. Tampa Bay made. You've seen me wear them before. White shirts, black shirts, just really cool, simple. And if you're Tampa Bay made right here. I got the Bucs fitted on today, and I have all the teams supported around me, and I'll always have a very special right here, Amir Abdur-Rahim, man. He'll always be with us. I got my Hit Factory up here for the Russos, my guy Scanio 813 for the Bay. I'm supporting everybody here in the Tampa Bay area. Dugout mugs, all the teams as well. You see behind me. You even see, boom, you know who that guy is right there. I got to give him back. Joe Boo. Took it from my guy Frankie. That's the way it goes. If you ever see Major League, sometimes you got to pray to Joe Boo when things aren't going too well. Shout out to my guy, Eric Moreno. Hey, Jay, chances Tristan Wirfs is playing Sunday. I think there's probably a good chance. If it was a playoff game on this past Sunday, could he have played? I don't know, but it doesn't seem like he was as bad as initially thought. When you saw Tristan Wirfs get banged up, you're like, oh, my God, here we go. Not good. He's going to be out for the year, but it looks like he's going to be okay. He's wrapped up. He's got the knee braces on. So we'll see. Todd Bowles, I know, speaks at 12:30 today. Unfortunately, some not great news. It looks like Jordan Whitehead, and I didn't see any of the updates here on social media from whether it was a Greg Allman or a Rick Stroud. No, I didn't see it quite yet, but I'd be very surprised if he wasn't out for the year, because you saw that injury. There's certain injuries that you see and you're like, oh, that doesn't look too good. And the Jordan Whitehead was one of those. Immediately when you grab this part of your body, it's probably going to be a torn pec. So not great for Jordan Whitehead. And this is why going out there and getting a guy like Mike Edwards was so key. He knows the defense. It's not going to take him a long time. Somebody asked me on the show on Friday, is this going to be like a jump for the defense? I don't know if it was necessarily a jump. It was great cover for some of the issues you might have on the back line, Tyke Smith being out. But now if Jordan Whitehead is out for any extended period of time, you have a guy like Mike Edwards that can kind of seamlessly get in there and do his thing. So you're going to need him. It's all hands on deck, especially if he's out. And I love what I saw from, and Eric brings this up too, Christian Izien. I thought he was one of the best players on the field for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday against the Giants. So you're going to see a lot more Izien. We know what Antoine Winfield Jr. brings to the table, but we'll keep you abreast of the situation when we hear more about Jordan Whitehead. That wouldn't be too good. Eric also, hey, Jay, can you keep my cousin in your prayers? He just lost his best friend, 18 years old. So sad. Yes. Man, it is just gone too soon. And that's why, kind of going back to the entire situation with me, was everybody felt so bad about me, losing my job. It's just the job, right? Again, we got the picture right here of Amir Abdur-Rahim, where a couple Sundays ago, we're at the celebration of life for him at the Yingling Center, and we see his wife and his 3 kids and his brother and his family and all the people in the USF athletic department just being absolutely shell-shocked, losing such a incredible human being at 43 years young, just like that. That's pain. That's real loss. Me, I lost my job. That's nothing. It's nothing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here in the Tampa Bay area. I'm still doing the Recher podcast. Again, you're going to hear me every Monday and every Friday for the most part. Not this Friday because it's all Thanksgiving, but every Monday and Friday pretty much for the rest of the year. And then every single day at noon starting in 2025, I will be here with you disseminating that information. Everything that's going on in the Tampa Bay sports world, I have you covered. This is why you want to follow me on social media. This is why you want to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in advertising with the Recher podcast, hit me up on social media at Recher and let me know. I will definitely be having discussions over the next couple of weeks. You want to get on board. Get on board right now. Don't wait. Don't wait. Because I'm still going to be covering every team. I'm still going to be out there with USF and Lightning, Bucs, Rays, Rowdies, Sun. It does not stop. It doesn't. So follow. And again, if you want to advertise with the Recher podcast, hit me up on every social media platform at Recher. What a weekend it was for our Tampa Bay sports teams. Again, great win for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they took care of business against the New York Football Giants. That made you feel good about the second half. I say the second half of the season, just the backside of the season for the Bucs as they sit here now at 5-6, and we're wondering, can they go on a run? Can they go on a run? Well, if they play like they did against the Giants, I think they have a really good shot because they got contributions from everybody. They really did. They got contributions from Baker Mayfield and Bucky Irving and Rashad White, Sean Tucker, Mike Evans coming back. Sterling Shepard had some catches. Defensively, getting guys like Kalaji Cansey involved. Christian Izzy, I mentioned. That's what the Buccaneers need to do. They have to play complementary football. You're going to be favored in pretty much every game, maybe not the Chargers game down the stretch, but just look at the remaining schedule. At Carolina, you're going to be favored in that game. Even though Carolina has played good, they put a scare into the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. Home against the Raiders, they'll be favored there. At the Chargers in LA on December 15th, a 4:25 start. That could help them out because it's a little bit better of a start. You know, it'll still feel like 1 o'clock Eastern time, but I don't know if they'll be favored there. They'll be favored in Dallas against the Cowboys, at home against the Panthers, and at home against the Saints. The Bucs just have to make sure that they do the little things. It always comes down to the fine margins. Who cares what you are on paper? You got to go out there and perform. And I love that they took the first step yesterday against the Giants. They didn't just go out there and say, oh, we're supposed to beat these guys. Daniel Jones is gone. Tommy Coughlin is in. They're just going to, all right, we're just going to show up and the Giants are going to lay down. No. They were aggressive in their play calling offensively and defensively, and they came out on top. So a very, very positive sign for our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll talk some more Bucs here in a little bit. Martin Gramatica is going to join us at 12:40. I want to show some love to the Tampa Bay. Get to Rowdies in a second. Lightning in a second. Rays news with the stadium. The county commissioners just sent a letter to the Tampa Bay Rays saying they need a decision whether they're going to try to work this out or whether they're going to submit a letter of termination by December 1st. It's put up or shut up time for the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to talk to Hillsborough County Commissioner Ken Hagan at 1:40. So we'll save some of that chat for then. Let's look at the USF Bulls. Hold on. Todd Bowles. All right. I wanted to give you guys this right now. Todd Bowles says they don't have an MRI results on Jordan Whitehead yet. Lineup changes will be situational based on who they're playing and what they want to do. Todd Bowles is also saying that Joe Tryon-Shoyinka ankle injury. So still nothing definitive with Jordan Whitehead, and we're going to have to wait on Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. So there you go. That's from Todd Bowles. He's just speaking right now over at the Avon Hill Training Center at One Buccaneer Place. USF. I want to get to them real quick. Sean Atkins, stud receiver, is going to join us at 2 o'clock today to talk about his historic career. This guy went from walk-on to record setter. Sean Atkins, number 38, one of the best guys to ever don the green and gold. and he helped lead the way for USF as they came out on top against Tulsa. They absolutely smoked them. 63 points. I mean, when you look at it and you look at the performance by this Bulls team, you got to tip your hat to Alex Golish because it was a little rough there in the middle of the season. You were wondering, all right, what's going on with these guys? Are they going to be able to bounce back? They were so close in the game against Alabama. They were close against the Miami Hurricanes, but it dissipated at the end. But they were able to kind of rally the troops, get back to it, and they're able to come out on top. They're 6-5. They're bowl eligible for the second year in a row. Shout out to Bryce Archie, who once again came in there and did his thing with Byron Brown, who did warm up before the game. But we were told before the game, don't get too far ahead of yourselves. It's no guarantee that Byron Brown is going to be in there. But USF comes out a 63-30 win. Bryce Archie with one of his more accurate performances in a USF jersey, 21 of 31, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air. You look at the contributions on the ground. He also ran one in as well. 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 from Kelly Joyner, 1 from Teron Keith, who joined us on the program on last Monday, and Naquan Wright as well, 308 yards on the ground. That is going to be where the success lies for this USF team. Run the football. You have 3 guys in the backfield that can do great things with Naquan Wright, Teron Keith, and Kelly Joyner. And Bryce Archie, he's really starting to kind of find his groove in this offense. It's tough because he's more of a traditional pocket passer. He's not the guy that can really hurt you in the running game as much as a Byron Brown. I mean, this was a guy that you're putting up numbers that the only person that you could compare to Byron Brown last year in college was Jaden Daniels, and he won the freaking Heisman Trophy. Look at what he's doing now with the Washington Commanders. So for Bryce Archie to come in there and kind of try to run Byron Brown's offense, it was a little, mystifying that they couldn't get it to work. But the last couple of weeks has been so much better and a great start for the team. That was the big thing. Don't fall behind. Even in the game against SMU, Southern Miss earlier this year, it was like, why are you falling behind to this team? Play a full game. I know Alex Golish didn't like the end of the game because there was a ton of points put up by Tulsa, 23 to be exact in the fourth, but by then you're up by a chunk. I mean, you think about it, after 3 quarters, they were up 49-7. So it's only natural for there to be a little bit of a letdown. But 3 interceptions, and the team is kind of peaking at the right time. They got one more game this weekend against Rice, and then we'll see where they go for their bowl game. I know that there's people out there that would love to see USF play Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl, but I mean, if you're USF, would you really want to stay in Tampa? I don't know. I wouldn't. I did hear, I don't know if they've really made this public, but you're going to hear it here on the Jay Recher podcast. There is a chance somehow, some way, that USF can play in Hawaii for their bowl game. If that's the case, I don't care what I have to do. You can stuff me in Jim Lauk's luggage. I could give 2 craps. Get me there to Hawaii and see USF in a bowl game out there. How great would that be? You're telling me Raymond James Stadium, where you play all your home games, or go to Hawaii? Yeah, I don't think it's much of a decision. I hope that they go somewhere else. I mean, you saw it last year as they went to Boca to take on the Syracuse Orange, and they shut them out, which was great. But I'd love to see USF go out of state for their bowl game. It's something special for these kids, especially all the seniors. You saw how many of them were honored before that game against Tulsa. How nice would it be for Sean Atkins and Kelly Joyner and Jalen Schuler and some of these guys to go out of state and play in a bowl game? They deserve that. They've earned that. I don't like the deserve. They've earned that. So hopefully that is the case. Let's see. Jay Cobian. What's up, Jay? Happy Victory Monday. You got that right. Unfortunately, we can't say that for our Tampa Bay Lightning. They come up short against the Dallas Stars on Saturday night by a score of 4-2. You hear me say about the little things and the fine margins a lot. Well, it happened there again with the Dallas Stars. Defensively, you got to be more sound. Ryan McDonough, the culprit here. This is a team with the Tampa Bay Lightning where the margin for error is not going to be, it's going to be a lot smaller than it was during the Stanley Cup years. It's just the way it is. Even though you do have a guy like Andrei Vasilevsky between the pipes, you still have to be smart. You can't turn the puck over. You got to get the puck in deep. Look at the space 5 to 8 feet on each side of the blue line. Watch it tonight as the Lightning take on the Colorado Avalanche. I won't be at Amalie at all this week. We're going to New York very early tomorrow for Thanksgiving to be with my family. But just watch this over the next couple of games, Lightning fans. 5 to 8 feet on both sides of the blue line. Are the Lightning getting the puck out of their zone, or is the opposition keeping it in? Because when that happens and you spend more time in your defensive zone, more often than not, that leads to a big-time scoring chance and could lead to a goal. On the other side of the blue line, can you get the puck in deep? Get the puck in deep, get the defenseman to kind of turn around and let your forecheck go to work. Go in there and hammer the other team. Be physical and make them turn over the puck. But you can't turn the puck over before you get to the blue line. Or even, once you get in the zone, 5 to 8 feet inside the blue line. If the Lightning can continue to manage those areas of the ice, they'll be in good shape. But we've already seen a little bit of a topsy-turvy go of it for this Bolts team, and that doesn't bode well. I mean, you just kind of look at the last couple of weeks. Just look at the month of November, all right? We're not going to go before that. Just the month of November. 3 losses to start the month. Minnesota, Winnipeg, and St. Louis. Then 3 wins, Flyers, Jets, Devils. 2 losses, back-to-back now. Pittsburgh in overtime, Jets in overtime. Well, excuse me. Also 3 wins. Let me say that again. 3 wins, Jets, Devils, and Penguins. And now 2 losses again. So it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. There's got to be some consistency with this team. That's going to really hurt them when we start looking as we get closer to a postseason berth for them in the playoff push. And we know with the Bolts, it's all about munching points. We saw it last year. We know it wasn't pretty last year, but there was almost like a safety net beneath them because the other teams in the Atlantic didn't play all that well. So they just kind of munched points. Remember, they held down the fort until Andrei Vasilevsky came back after 20 games. But when he did, they just never really kicked it into gear. They were good enough, but you saw in that first round playoff series with the Florida Panthers, they weren't good enough. Florida went on to win the Stanley Cup, and the Lightning went home in the first round. Nick Paul being out certainly helps. And John Cooper said he's probably not going to be in there at all this week. And I thought he was playing some really good hockey, and you started to see what these lines were looking like. I really was a fan of Point, Kucherov, and Gensel, Cirelli, Hagel, and Geeky, and then Paul with whether it's a Shafee and Gonsalves. Yeah, that's where this team I really felt was starting to find its groove. Great to see Anthony Cirelli with a couple of tallies the other night against the Dallas Stars, but let's keep things in perspective. I know some people were tweeting at me. This is the Anthony Cirelli that we've all been waiting for. It still remains to be seen that he can do it over an 82-game series. 82-game season, excuse me. Is it in him? Of course it is. We've seen it. The guy comes up clutch. He's a hell of an athlete. Great two-way player. But he's yet to have a season with 50 points. And if you're looking for your second-line center to really help out offensively, he's got to be around, in my opinion, the 60 to 65 point. I'm not expecting him to go back-to-back with the guys on the top line and have 100 points, but it can't be more than 50. He hasn't even had a 50-point season yet. Can he get to 60, 65? I think so. We haven't seen it yet. He's on the right track this year. I think he's got, 21 points? He's just got to keep pushing, keep going. People saying he's getting more opportunities now than he did in the past. I don't know. Is he? He's still at times playing with different guys. It's him and Hagel. He's been playing with him for the last couple of years now, whether it's on the PK or getting some action there 5-on-5. But if he wasn't playing with Hagel last year, he was probably playing with Stamkos. So it's not like he wasn't playing with good offensive players. So we got to keep things in perspective. And I said this last year, the 3 guys that signed those extensions with the Lightning, Julian Brisebois gave it to him, Sergachev, Chernak, and Cirelli. He gave those guys those contracts because he thought that they were going to be part of the core going forward. They needed to take their game to the next level. Had some issues with Sergachev's play last year before he got hurt. Cirelli as well. I think Chernak's been pretty good, this year, and it helps to get his, right-hand man back, his tag team partner, Ryan McDonough. But those 3 guys, because they got those contracts, they needed to take that step forward. No doubt about it. Finally, before we go back to some Buccaneer football with our guy, Martin Gramatica here in a bit, I want to mention the Tampa Bay Rowdies. They announced today some big changes to their roster. Guys aren't coming back. Guys like Cal Jennings and Jordan Doherty, Josh Perez. We heard last week or 2 weeks ago that Leo Fernandez and Lewis Hilton are going to come back. They declined a bunch of options, including Phil Brano and Forrest Lasso, which was a little bit of a surprise. You look a little farther down, they're trying to bring him back. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bring Forrest Lasso back. They lost him due to injury early last season. You want to try to get one more go of it, I think, if you're the Tampa Bay Rowdies. You're obviously going to get a new goalie in there. We had Jordan Farr on last Friday. He's going to DC United. But now you want to probably give another go with Leo Fernandez, Lewis Hilton, Forrest Lasso. You got Mano Ortega that are going to stay with you. So that's a good core. That's a good base, a good foundation for this Tampa Bay Rowdies team after being first or second the last couple of years in the Eastern Conference, sixth this year. They did win a playoff game, dramatic, against Detroit City FC on some PKs, but that's not the Rowdies, right, that we're kind of used to, of being at the top of the table. So hopefully full, clean slate, wipe it fresh, and then 2025 we see the Rowdies that we know, a team that's contending for league titles. All right, let's bring in our next guest, one of the best of our favorite people here in the Tampa Bay area, the one and only Martin Gramatica. Martin, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm good, Jay. How are you doing?
Oh, it's a victory Monday, brother. How good does it feel on a victory Monday for you when the Buccaneers win?
Always feels awesome, especially when we play as well as we played yesterday, because you can look at all facets of the game. They played really good football. It's nice to see after the bye week how fresh the team looked yesterday, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited for what's next, what's left of the season.
Yeah, and it's weird because Chase actually missed the kick yesterday, which was kind of crazy. He's been automatic for him to kind of yank one. You've kicked at MetLife or in the Meadowlands, right?
I have, but they said the new turf. It's really tacky, and when your foot kind of gets caught, and I remember talking to a couple guys that have played there, and it's not the best turf, for kicking, but Chase is automatic, and luckily he missed in a game that we didn't need him. So when we need him, he comes through all the time. So I'm not worried about him at all.
Martin, what was the most difficult road venue to kick at for you, whether it was the turf, the grass, or the wind, or the weather?
I think Chicago, going to Chicago, by the time we played them early on in my career, because they were in our division, it was usually the end of the season. So there's really no turf left or no grass left. And then obviously it's always windy. So Chicago, Green Bay, obviously those places where there's really no grass left in the winter. And then you got to deal with the wind and the cold. So those were tough spots to kick.
Martin, I'm looking at a guy like Todd Bowles, who catches a lot of heat when the Buccaneers lose. But when they win, nobody gives the guy any kind of love, any kind of credit whatsoever. What is your assessment of the job that he's done with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team? And, how do I put this? Is he a guy, like, when you're a player's coach, when you're loved and respected by the veterans, do you think it's easier for them to kind of like put bad games and bad losing streaks behind them and kind of just go out there and play football?
Yeah, I think, Todd Bowles' personality looks and feels similar. I don't know him that well. I've met him a few times. Super nice guy. A lot like Tony Dungy, where guys respect him and play for him. And I know with Tony Dungy, he was criticized a lot for not showing a lot of emotion on the sideline, but that was him, staying calm and collected. That way they can make those tough decisions, because if, sometimes the rah-rah coaches work and sometimes they don't. Right. In this case, the head coach of any football team is going to get a ton of criticism when you lose and not much credit when you win, so that's, I'm sure he's used to that. I'm sure his family's used to it. I think he's done a really good job of bringing the proper coordinators, to not only handle the defense, which we struggled early on, but I feel like we're getting better. And then staying healthy, that's huge, staying healthy. I mean, the offense has put up some great numbers, even with Mike Evans and Godwin out, so you got to give credit to Owen, the new coordinator, because he's done a really good job there. So I feel like he's done a really good job. And as a coach, you don't have to be that rah-rah, always screaming type of guy to be successful.
And I'm sure that you've seen, whether it's, your family watching or your kids watching, like, people always want that because they can kind of see, like, oh, that guy cares. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes those guys that are yelling and freaking out, I think that's a sign of panic most of the time, man. And I want my guy to be calm when things are going crazy. I don't need a guy to freak out and start dropping a lot of F-bombs to show me that he cares. I feel like that's kind of one of the biggest misconceptions in sports. Do you agree with that?
No, I agree, because to get to that level, to get to be an NFL coach, to get to the highest level, you have to care and you have to put a lot of work and effort into it. Everybody's personality is different, and you can't copy somebody's personality. You just got to be yourself. In this case, Todd Bowles is one of those guys that stays calm and collective, but that doesn't mean a rah-rah, crazy, goes nuts on the sideline type of coach can't be successful either, because there's been some very animated, energetic coaches that have been successful as well. I just think you have to be yourself, and the team will follow if they trust you. That's the number one thing that I feel that coaches need to have, the trust of their players. Todd Peterson's a great example for me when he lost the locker room in Philly. And they bring him into Jacksonville thinking he's going to do the same, or he's going to, revive that franchise. Once you lose the locker room, I feel like that's when you can never be a head coach again, because players aren't going to trust you. You see what's going on in Jacksonville. It's just not going well, and not going well for him. And in Todd Bowles, nobody's ever lost trust in him. Nobody's ever second guessed it, if you can trust the guy. So, that's where I feel like we have an advantage. You as long as you don't lose the locker room, it doesn't matter what type of coach you are as far as the personality. You just can't lose the locker room.
Yeah, 2 years in a row where they go on a losing streak in the middle of the season, and no signs of fragmentation whatsoever, no signs of people jumping off the ship. And I think that speaks volumes to the respect that the players have for a guy like Todd Bowles. We saw a missed kick at the end of the Washington-Dallas game, crazy comeback. I think it's Austin Siebert missed the kick. Man, and you could just see him wearing it on his face. Like, what's that feeling like when you miss a kick and not only did you guys lose the game, but that you're going to have to face the cameras and you're going to have to answer questions after that. It's one thing, because I know coaches have to do it, quarterbacks have to do it, but when it comes down to one kick and everything, it's just all eyes on you. How do you deal with that? How do you answer those questions? And then how do you kind of dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and then just go back to work the next day?
Well, nobody feels worse than the kicker that misses that kick. And I've missed big kicks, and I never felt worse when I missed a big kick in Green Bay towards the end of the season that could have given us a good home field advantage, and I missed that kick. I don't want to leave my house because I let my whole teammates down. And you think about the fans, you think about the community, but at the end of the day, you let down the coach, Dungy, that trusted you, and your teammates that were there for you all year. So it's awful. So when you see the media pile on, or people pile on, fans pile on, yes, it could be hurtful, but at the end of the day, they can't hurt you any more than you already hurt for letting your people down. And that's where, I feel for these kickers now that I have kids that kick. I don't want anybody to miss. I don't want to see anybody miss, because I understand and I see what their families go through. Like I remember when I was playing, what my family went through. My wife, my brothers. I mean, that was at every game. On edge of his seat. So we're on the edge of our seats watching Nico kick now. So we understand what the family goes through. So I feel horrible. The one incident that I really hated to see is the 49ers kicker when I think Debo whatever his name is.
Debo Samuel. Yeah.
Came out and went at him. I'm like, that is a guy that shouldn't be a leader on that team. I feel like that kicker should have just punched him in the mouth there, because nobody feels worse than you, and for one of your teammates to do that, I'm glad he came back and but now obviously with us, I'm sad. I mean, I didn't want him to make that game winner.
Right. That was the holder that he actually got beef with, which was but we don't know. Like, he could have been defending the kicker, right? Like, and he just kind of took the brunt of it. So that's not really the holder was the guy that Debo was kind of beefing with. What is that relationship like? I think that's a good segue. Like, your relationship, whether it's personally, professionally, because I've been at training camp for 10 years now, and a lot of times in training camp, it's the specialist guys, man. It's the punter, it's the kicker, it's the long snapper, and the holder, right? And usually the punter is the holder. Take us through your relationship with the holder and how important it is to be familiar and have a good rapport with him.
Well, you have to have extreme trust, and you have to build a friendship. In my case, I had veteran punters, early on in my career that helped a lot. And obviously with the Super Bowl, it was Tom Tupa that had been, in the league for, I think it was like 12, 13 years before he came to Tampa. We created a great relationship to this day. We still talk all the time. My wife and I babysit his kids so he can go out on date night with his wife. So, and now Tommy, his old is like 30, 35. So I'm feeling really old right now. But the point, you have that relationship. Ryan Benjamin, who snapped for us for the Super Bowl, played at USF. I knew him through my brothers at USF, got to know him, was friends with him, and then he came to Tampa. So that core has to be inseparable because they call it the operation, so you got to trust your long snapper, you got to trust your holder. And obviously, the more you trust them, the more the better friendship you have with them. You know they're doing their best they can for you, and you don't even ever second guess it. You know the ball's going to be down.
All right, I'm going to ask you this. You have one kick that you got to make to win the Super Bowl. What stadium are you kicking it in? Who's the long snapper, and who's your holder?
Well, I mean, that would have been no brainer to want to do it in Raymond James. That would be amazing. My holder obviously would be Tupa. Like I said, we still have a great relationship to this day, and we won the Super Bowl together. And then I got to say, Ryan Benjamin, he snapped in the Super Bowl for us, and a good friend that we still communicate as well. So not to say that I didn't have any other good holders and snappers. Mike Soul started the year and then it got injured. That's why Ryan Benjamin came in midway through the year, the Super Bowl year. So Soul was a great guy as well. So, but those two guys, that's who I would have to say since we won the Super Bowl together.
Yeah, it's a perfect answer, man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, especially if you win the Super Bowl with them. Let's talk some USF football. Nico out there, they threw him out there for a 58-yarder. Everybody it's kind of crazy in that game where, USF just ran over them right from the beginning of the game. But I don't know if you can feel this, Martin, because you're his dad. But when Nico goes out there for long kicks, there is like an elevation. There's an elevation. People get excited, man, because they know that he's the future of that position and that he's got an ability to make long kicks. Do you feel that? And what was your feeling when he went out there to try to make that 58-yarder?
Well, we're on the edge of our seats when he's kicking off, so anytime he steps on that field, we're glued to him. I'm glued to him in the kicking net to see how he's warming up. So that's why I want to apologize to anybody that wants to talk to us during the game or pregame or postgame, because we're so locked in what Nico's doing. Obviously, USF too. We want them to win, but I'm focusing on my son. I don't want to be rude. So a lot of people might think this guy's not the nicest guy, but it's just we're locked in on Nico. No, but we're thankful for the opportunity that he's getting because not a lot of true freshmen get a chance to play. And I told him to be patient. Eventually, he'll have his chance to do everything, and that's what we're hoping for. But at the end of the day, he's getting a chance. What he's being asked to do is not easy. Kind of go out there without much rhythm and just go attempt 50+ yarders. But no excuses. What I told him, I said you got to stay focused and visualize the whole game as if you were kicking every ball. That way, when you get in, you already have mental reps, and that's what he's done a great job of doing. I love Coach Golish, what he's doing, and he's slowly getting him in there some pressure situations. It's hard to throw in a true freshman right away and expect him to be successful. You go from high school with no fans to full stadium when we play Miami, Alabama. So they slowly have put him in a little bit more pressure situations. So I think they're doing a great job of managing that, and I'm excited. The one thing that we're super proud of all of my kids, but their hard work. They're not just saying because my dad played, I have this last name, I'm going to make it. It's their work ethic that's gotten them where they are. It has nothing to do with who his uncle, Santiago works with him a ton, with all his technical. Mm-hmm. I say I work more on their mental side because I'm not the nicest coach. I get out there and then I try to get in their heads. They're getting ready to get a little workout in today, and I'm going to get in his head. That's my thing, trying to make sure they're mentally tough, because as a kicker, you have to be mentally tough. Every kicker misses. You're not going to be perfect. So the thing where the great kickers show how great they are, how they rebound from a miss. And that's where I want to get them ready mentally for that, because eventually they miss. Every kicker misses. I want to make sure that they're ready for that. And I'm excited to watch them. And even though it is nerve-wracking and intense and the whole family just on edge watching them kick, but we're super proud of them for sure.
Yeah, you and I have been talking about, kind of how Golish has been taking it slow, which is you're a big fan of. And then there's other parents out there that are like, I want him to make every kick. I want him to kick every kick. And you've just been very steadfast and like, hey, just take his time. There's no reason to rush it. Get out there, make your kicks. And when you get your number called, and just, enjoy the process. And how crazy was it yesterday? Kansas City Chiefs wins that game in Carolina against the Panthers. And the guy that kicked the field goal was Spencer Schrader, who not long ago, before he went to Notre Dame, was a kicker at USF, which was a beautiful thing to see. So excited to see what his future holds with Nico, man. It's just, he's got a great attitude, and I watch him a lot too, man. So I can't wait to see what the future holds for him. Do you think it's more important to have a guy with great technique or great mental strength?
Mental strength, 100%, because you can overcome technique. You can get better with your technique. If you're mentally weak, it's hard to build that. It's hard to have that. And you see a lot of great kickers that don't make it because they can't handle the pressure of a game. They're really good in practice. They're really good in tryouts, or maybe have huge legs. But then, so I think the mental side of kicking, you have to have the technique, you have to have the leg strength. I mean, there's no question you have to have all that. And the majority of the kickers these days, because of the training, the way they practice, the way they do specific training, they all have kicking coaches early on in their career, so their technique is flawless at times. But now the ones that make it and stay in the league longer are the ones that are mentally strong, because it's a lonely and tough position when you miss, and that's the thing. You've got to be mentally ready for that, because missing a game winner, it's not like basketball or baseball that you're going to play in 2 days or in the next day. You've got to think about that for a week and sometimes longer, and especially if it's later in the year where you might be out of the playoffs. Now you got to think a whole off season about it. So it's not easy, but I feel like the mental side is more important, obviously, than the physical side. If you don't have the mental side, there's no chance you're going to make it.
Yeah, and you just got to make sure that you can come up with fumbles like Nico did in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, which was I was the only person that saw that in the press box. It was a really, really good time, and not something that I will soon forget. The one and only Martin Gramatica, the Super Bowl champ. Martin, always great catching up with you, my friend. You have a great rest of your week. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the entire family, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and again, enjoy it with your family as well. Take care.
Thanks
for having me.
You got it, pal. Anytime. See ya. The one and only Martin Gramatica, one of the best dudes that you're ever going to meet, that you're ever going to talk to. Just such a nice man, so down to earth. And he's right. Like everything he said there, this is something we have conversations up in the press box. It's funny because we'll be at a USF game on Saturday and Nico would do his thing. And I don't see Martin up there because he's with the family. But then Sunday up in the press box for the Bucs game, Martin is on the Spanish radio call. So we'll see him. I'll see him like right before the game, walking in with his brother, or at halftime. I kind of like stand in the middle in the halftime by the Bananas Foster. And he always comes over and we talk about Nico and what he's been able to do so far this year, and how Coach Golis really is kind of taking it slow with them. And we've seen John Cannon take a majority of the kicks, from 40 and in. And then if it's a long kick, we'll see Nico. And at times Nico does some of the, kickoffs as well. And we saw that one I just mentioned in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. He's able to come up with a fumble. But that's like part of it. The parenting is still part of it, even when your kid's in college. I feel like that part gets understated when these players go to college, is that the parents are still a huge part of their lives. People wonder why, they're inconsistent, or they're wondering like why they do certain things. Like, these are still kids. Like, these are still young men that are doing their thing. And when you have these guys that go home, they're not living on their own. They're still living with mom and dad. Like, when some of these immature decisions that they make, like, that's just part of the game. That's just the nature of the beast. So the parents, and helping them out and guiding them and being understanding and putting them in a position to succeed, and not being overbearing and not freaking out when something doesn't go their way, like, that still applies to these college athletes. I mean, especially to some of the ones that are staying home, like a guy like Nico, who's a Tampa kid through and through. Parents going to every game, dad an NFL kicker. But the way that the Grammatics have done it, just nice and easy. Don't rush it. There's no reason to put the cart before the horse. He's going to kick for a long time, and you see it. he's not a big guy, but he's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger, and he's going to be able to continue to make these long kicks. It's exciting to see him in the Tampa Bay area, staying with USF. We were wondering if he was going to go to dad's alma mater in Kansas State, but no, he stayed at USF. So we're happy for that and excited to cheer him on forever, for however long his career is with USF. I didn't mention this and before Martine hopped on with us. Did you see that shot that Jaden Reed made for USF men's basketball? Incredible. Buzzer beater against Wright State. Final game there in Myrtle Beach. They went 2-1 in their 3 games. You got to feel good if you're a USF basketball fan. Coach Ben Fletcher has a litany of talented players on his team. Now it's just about finding the right rotation, finding the right guys to go in there, finding the right 5 to start. Who's going to be your first guard? Who's going to be your first wing? Who's going to be your first big off the bench? But man, Jaden Reed, who, if you check the tweet, it was super emotional. He said that one was for Coach. Jaden Reed, a kid from Westbury, Long Island, not too far from where I grew up. So close to the late great Amir Abdur-Rahim. And it's hard not to think that Amir was, watching down and smiling and had something to do with that play. Because Jaden Reed going into the corner there, rising up and making that shot at the end of the game to win the game as USF was down 1 against Wright State. It was just like, it was the perfect way to end their trip to Myrtle Beach. I'm excited because the conference play is right around the corner for the green and gold, and there is a ton of good players that weren't on the team last year. You're returning some guys. I think you're returning guys like Stroud and Knox and Jaden Reed. You got some of the glue guys back. But you look, and whether it's Jameel down low, whether it's a guy like Kason Jennings, Quincy, I mean, you got some really good players on this team that are just kind of finding where they fit in. And when Coach Ben Fletcher puts it all together and gets these guys humming, watch out for this USF teams. I wouldn't be very surprised if they do damage in the conference. I really wouldn't. There is some legit talent there. So it's I'm happy. I'm happy about USF men's basketball. USF women's basketball unfortunately lost a 4-point game to Louisville yesterday. That's one of the better teams in the country, and only lose by 4 points. I know Coach Jose Fernandez wanted to come out with the victory, wanted to come out on top. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way for him. But hey, you go out there, you do your thing, and you go toe-to-toe. This is why he schedules these big-time games early on in the season. Playing UConn, playing South Carolina, playing Louisville, gets them ready not only for conference play, but it also gets them ready for, the NCAA tournament and that kind of survive and advance, that mentality where, again, we go back to the margins being so fine, the little things mattering, little things mattering and counting so much. It's huge. It's huge. The great Carmen Vitali is going to join us here momentarily. Just going to send her a reminder text here. Now, the thing is, when we're doing this podcast here, this is a one-man band for me. This is all me all the time. I'm producing it. I'm cutting up the videos. I'm doing just everything, booking the guests. It wasn't always like that, over at the last gig and having a producer and kind of working together, having a co-host. Like, this is all me, booking the guests, doing the graphics, cutting up the videos. Hey, it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. I got no issues, no problems whatsoever. But hey, this is what you got to do to be successful in today's world. All right. Speaking of success, I think one of the big success stories over the weekend was the Arizona State Sun Devils. So even though she's a friend, even though she knows everything about the NFL, my favorite Arizona State Sun Devil is the one Vitali. What's going on, girl? How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so good. I can't believe that I'm on a show to talk about Arizona State football, because this is the team that I have a very complicated and treacherous past with. I worked for the team in college. I have been heartbroken by this team. My biggest heartbreak in sports happened because of this team, but I'm so happy to see that they're doing well now.
Yeah, and I always loved the back and forth with you and Gronk, because Gronk was a bit, an Arizona grad. So I always thought that was a great relationship between you two guys when you were with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because in Tampa, you don't necessarily see too many Arizona State rivalries. So it really stood out. And we do miss you here in the Tampa Bay area, Carmen. But I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday. We are so proud of everything that you've done. I mean, you're just the leaps and bounds that you've like grown, and you're on Fox and you're on all these different shows and you're engaged, and we're just like, it's just so happy to follow along with your journey personally and professionally. So thank you for joining us, but just congratulations on all your success, and it couldn't happen to a nicer person. So just wanted to pass that on before we talk some football. But Arizona State, like that was the so I'm at USF and I'm watching the game, and we're just literally watching the Arizona State, and the way the game ended, like it was just
so ASU.
As a fan, you must be looking out there and you see these hordes of buffalo going on the field, and knowing that eventually they're going to have to go all off the field, and coach just freaking out. Like that was so Arizona State, so ASU, wasn't it?
It was. I was actually at ASU for the last time they stormed the field, which was against Utah. It was a Friday night game. And so I was like, sweet, I can actually go to this because we live in LA right now. And it's a very easy flight to Phoenix. Fridays are kind of our days off, given that we are following the NFL schedule. So like we can kind of make it work if there's a Friday night game. So we're like, oh, let's go to Utah. And what's really funny is that the time before I went, which was in 2017, was against number 5 Washington, where the students also stormed the field. So I have like a lot of history with students storming the field and actually being there. I wasn't there for this past game, but I know very intimately what that's like. And my fiance was even like, do you want to go down and storm the field? I was like, sweetheart, we're 35. I'm not doing that. There's no way. I was on the field for Washington, and actually so was Vita Vea because he was on that Washington team that they played, which was so funny. I showed him it after he got drafted by the Bucs. I was like, I've been on the field with you already. But it's just an absolute madhouse. There's only really one tunnel that they try to push kids out of. It's so funny too, because you see like the security and everything like that, and you're just like, man, like they're not going to do anything. These kids are just pouring over the rails because you can do that there too. In that stadium, there's not a whole lot of there's not a huge drop from going down off the stand. So I was looking at that like, oh my God, that's horrendous. This game is going to go on for another 20 minutes while they try to get all these. And did you see the kid that was in the injury tent?
Oh, no.
So there's a kid that was on TikTok that of course popped up in my algorithm. After the game gets going again, like they like start to get set, he's filming himself. He's just a fan. He's inside the injury tent. He's like, they don't know I'm in here. And then turns it around, and I'm just like, the fact that like there wasn't a penalty assessed, or like I was just like this, like I don't know. It was so ASU. That was a really long-winded story, but
no, it's great. And then I'm just glad they won, because you're 1 second on the clock. The ball's.
I was convinced BYU was hitting that Hail Mary. I was convinced. I'm like, that's just the way the world works. BYU is now going to win this somehow. I'm glad they did. They're making it. They don't totally control their own destiny in the Big 12, but
right.
Welcome to the Big 12. Like y'all were gonna take you took away the best thing we had, which was Pac-12 After Dark. Although ASU will always be Pac-12 After Dark in here.
Deep inside, yeah. Pac-12 After Dark. I always love games. This is why I love watching like the Australian Open in January every year, is because I love when sports are off and then it's like, oh yeah, turn on this channel. The next 6 hours, you're going to watch, Novak Djokovic against some random, entry from Melbourne. But yeah, Pac-12 After Dark was great, because even if you had one of those rare days where you're like, didn't watch a ton of football, you could sit down and be like, yes. And you settle right in. You're like 2 minutes into the first quarter. You're like, this is great. And you just don't know what you're going to see. Like you can see in, Arizona State against Washington. But yeah, I'm sure you love Kenny D, Coach Kenny. Like he's on another level, that guy, isn't he?
It's so funny. We were at school at the same time, but he didn't actually coach for ASU, or he wasn't like a GA for ASU while he was in undergrad. He was already coaching high school at that point. So like, I didn't really cross paths with him that much, but him and I are the exact same age. We were in school at the same time. I'm sure we probably actually did cross paths, and I just don't know it. But yeah, I was really skeptical, I'll be quite honest, because I was like, all right, so I know that he has all of the in-state kind of relationships, which is something that ASU has always had difficulty recruiting in state, which is absolutely insane because there are so many good football players that come out of Arizona.
Right.
And the fact that you couldn't keep these kids home with a campus as gorgeous as it is, as fun as it is, like, was just the stupidest thing to me. So Kenny has he's helped with that. And that's clearly, I mean, he gets just as fired up as these guys. Like, he is not at all the calm, cool, and collected guy. And like, I think he fits the program so well. And because we spoonerize everything, I call him Denny Killingham because he be killing them. So that's, I know. I think it's a really fun little nickname that I call him.
Has that caught on big time yet there or what?
I keep tweeting it, trying to get people to like get on board with this. And I haven't seen it like en masse, but like right now, like I'm trying, man, because I think that's hilarious. Like having a spoon where your last name is Killingham, like, come on. It's so good.
Denny Killingham. We are starting it right here on the Jay Recher podcast, and we'll put it out there on social media so that it gets a life of its own because you deserve that, Carmen. Denny Killingham. I like that. I'm a big fan of that. All right, so they're 9-2. I mean, is this the best team that you've seen since? I mean, people are always going to look back at Arizona State, and the first player that's going to come to their mind is who? Is going to be Jake Plummer, right? They're always going to look back.
Plummer, Pat Tillman, Terrell Suggs. Although people don't really realize that Terrell Suggs went there. I feel like he doesn't really put
crazy, right?
But he did the whole ball so hard you instead of actually claiming Arizona State.
Yeah,
I no. I mean, this team it's definitely the most fun. I've been hurt by them before. So like before that Utah game, my fiance was like, they're gonna win. And I'm like, no, they're not. Like they're not. Like they can't show up in these big games. It never happens. Like this is a nationally televised game. It's a primetime game. Like it doesn't go this well for me. And he was so confident and I was so not. And I was like, you know what? All right. If they just get to the 7-5 this season, I'm going to be fully in on Denny. I'm like, all I need is 7-5. That's it. Like, cool. And then like you'll be bowl eligible and the program will have turned around over the last couple of years. It'll be headed in the right direction. I'm in on Kenny. And now they've blown me out of the water and I'm like, well, F me. All right, cool. I'm totally behind you. They are so much fun. The 2017 team was pretty good too. I didn't pay a ton of attention because like when I was in Tampa, Pac-12 After Dark was fun, but like I couldn't be relied upon to stay up that late. Right. When kickoff was at 10:30 Eastern or God forbid 11 Eastern. So I didn't watch a ton of the games, but that 2017 team, I was there. Like I said, they knocked off number 5 Washington. It was the first time they'd knocked off a number 5 or a top 5 opponent. That team was pretty good too. My teams when I was in school, we won the Pac-10. That's how long ago it was. We won the Pac-10. My freshman year, we were co-champions with USC. Rudy Carpenter was the quarterback.
Oh wow!
Okay. Ryan Terrain was the running back. He spent some time with Washington back when they were called the R words. This was a long time, and that was a really fun team. But that was like my first team, and then after that, we were spectacularly mediocre. And it was like we would start really hot too sometimes, and then just to end up 6-6. And so I was there for all of Dennis Erickson's tenure. And I so distinctly remember in his office there was a giant photo of his Miami Hurricanes team that won the Natty. And like it had all of the guys in there, and like he's being like carried off the field, and like that was kind of what was sold with Dennis. Although I loved Dennis, he was always really great to me. But it was just funny because I was like, that never materialized. And I watched that photo go up and I watched that photo come down because I was there for all of him. This is so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, but listen, brighter days are ahead with the greatest nickname in college football, Denny Killingham.
Denny Killingham.
So, I mean, you just said Kenny, and I was like, who's Kenny?
I know. You're right. I got to commit to it. It's just Denny from now on.
You already flipped my switch, so I don't even know. Speaking of committing to it, Chicago Bears. I got to ask you about your NFC North.
Sorry, let me switch back into work mode.
Yeah, switch back into work mode. We did have some fun with Arizona State. What is your thoughts on Caleb Williams? Everybody, I feel like it's just like the laziest thing in football. If you cover football at all, it's like it's your goal to say that guy's a bust or that guy's great. Like nobody ever wants to like take time to truly analyze or assess what a guy does well. How does he bounce back after bad performances? How he can string together, good plays, right? How can he make a comeback? It's always that guy's a bust. This guy's great. Like it's so crazy. Where are you at with Caleb Williams right now? Because I was at a place watching the game yesterday, and the person to the left of me says, I don't see it. And the person to the right to me says, look at how he evaded that picture and how he evaded that pass rush and jumped over a defensive lineman. He's a pretty polarizing guy, not even 1 year into his career.
Yeah, we've seen this before in Chicago. I honestly I tried to do the whole thing of warning against really high expectations. I was very intentional, never calling Caleb Williams generational, because I'm like, he hasn't played an NFL snap. I cannot give him in good faith that title. Do I think that he is the most highly touted prospect, or is he the most highly touted prospect to come out in a long time? Yes. Do I think that he has a very, what could be a very special skill set? Yes. But we can't crown him before things all materialize, because we're seeing now more than ever that initial situation, coaching, all of that matters when a guy first gets into the league and can really set up the trajectory for the rest of his career until he makes a move somewhere else. I mean, in Tampa, Baker is such a wonderful example of that, where you're just kind of passed around and like being left for dead with the Browns after what he did for them. I think Browns fans have never really gotten over it, and I don't blame them. But then to see him kind of go be this journeyman before arriving in Tampa, you get him the guy that he wanted in Liam Cohen, and now look at him. I mean, it's just he's on a really cost-effective contract, but he is being everything you need him to be, both on and off the field too. I mean, this is a guy that's a tremendous leader. His teammates absolutely adore him. He shows up for his teammates. I went to Ryan Jensen's retirement party over the summer in Tampa. Ryan and Baker never played together, but Baker showed up because that's the kind of respect he wanted to show Ryan. And like he's just such a good guy and such a good teammate. I think that that's all possible for pretty much anybody. If you're good enough to make it through college and be a first round pick, it's just going to depend on the situation. And so we've seen the situation in Chicago be so incredibly, like, it's not consistent. You can't count on it. And it looks like they're about to repeat history yet again, where they draft a quarterback in the first round and then fire their head coach a year later. Ugh. And I don't know I still think that's an if, because reportedly Matt Eberflus still has 2 years left on his contract. And we've not seen the McCaskies, the owners of the Bears, be willing to pay coaches that aren't coaching for them for multiple years. So I still think it's an if Matt Eberflus is there. I'm really happy that Thomas Brown seems to have come in and in such a short amount of time, recognize what was wrong and not working with the offense, recognize what Caleb does really well, and kind of pared things back for him while still remaining pretty creative. Like, if you've seen the last couple of games, they've been division games against really tough teams, but they've kind of sacrificed some, I guess, versatility in their personnel groupings, where you see them kind of stick to one personnel grouping for a majority of the game. But you're adding in a lot more of that motion and a lot of the window dressing now, where not only does that make it harder on the defense to figure out exactly what you're doing, despite the fact that you have the same guys on the field, but it also gives the quarterback a lot more information. You can tell whether it's man or zone. You can gain certain leverage on certain defenders. You can test a safety's eye discipline by kind of the way that things are motioning around and moving around and shifting around. So that helps a young quarterback tremendously. It's something they should have been doing prior. There's been an uptick in play action as well, which takes a little bit to get used to in the beginning, but can, again, mitigate the rush, especially when you can't rely on your offensive line to really hold up. That's not something the Bears were doing either under Shane Waldron. So there's stuff that now I think is coming around, where you're going to start seeing more of those good plays, more of those special plays from Caleb Williams, because the situation around him has changed, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. Yeah. And you just kind of alluded to like the Caleb and Baker comp, and same thing here. Like, you could see the difference between Dave Canales last year and Liam Cohen this year, where there's a ton of window dressing. There's a ton of pre-snap motion. There's the pony package where you got Rashad and Bucky Irving out there at the same time. And one guy flies out and you're like, what the hell is going on here? And it's just, you saw so many difficult completions last year where every single time Mike made a catch, he was getting crunched.
Right.
You see that a lot, for teams that don't move the ball all that well. I mean, you saw it with the Giants for a while there when Daniel Jones is every single 3rd and 2 is, even though you complete it, the guy's barely catching and holding on to the football. And it's just then you see other guys and it seems like they're wide open. They scheme them open. It's just so easy to watch. I wanted to ask you this before I got you out of here. I feel like, and again, I don't necessarily, I'm not a fan of either one of the teams, but I feel like we're on a weird collision course with Detroit on the NFC side and Kansas City on the AFC side, where it seems like Detroit, even though they're losing all these guys due to injuries, seems like they play football the right way. And then Kansas City Chiefs just seems like a team that it doesn't matter if it's close. They just care about winning. And if it's close, it's not close. They win 1-score games. They're about to sign, Jay Feely and all these old kickers to come in and kick. They had Spencer Schrader in there yesterday. Am I wrong for thinking that we're on a weird collision course for Detroit and Kansas City? The first game in the 2023 season as being the last one for this season?
No, that's actually what my Super Bowl pick. My Super Bowl pick was the Lions versus the Chiefs.
There you go.
I've gotten to be pretty close to the Lions being in that locker room, and I keep saying it. I had such a wonderful access point with the Bucs when I worked for them. They really let me in to see everything, and I think the Lions locker room is probably the closest I've seen across the league now, having been in different locker rooms. I think the Lions locker room is the closest I've seen to the Bucs, just in terms of how close everybody is, how much they believe in each other. I was in the Lions locker room my first year covering the division in 2022, where they got off to a really poor start. I think 1-6 to start that season. And nobody seemed like doom and gloom. I had guys joking around with me. They were joking around with each other. They were still happy because they still had this belief in Dan Campbell, in the staff, in each other. And it wasn't like they weren't taking things seriously. They absolutely were. And you see that now too. It was just, they trusted the process implicitly. And when you have that unshakable belief in yourselves, there's no one that can take that away from you. And so then even when your quarterback does throw 5 interceptions, you never think you're out of it. And you're not. And because you never think you're out of it, you're not out of it. And we've seen it time and time again with these Lions. They're such a fun team. They are having so much fun. I mean, Ben Johnson is just playing with his food at this point, because this team seems to be able to score 30 points in their sleep. They actually have a lot of Tampa Bay connections. So if Bucs fans don't, I fully expect the Bucs to make the playoffs this year, but I don't know if that's a hot take. But if you need another team to kind of root for, there's a lot of Bucs connections on this Lions team, which I don't think is a coincidence. You've got even Pat O'Connor is now there, right. Carlton Davis, obviously, but even guys like Antoine Randall, who was on the Bucs coaching staff. Yeah. He's their receivers coach. There's another guy I was thinking of too. There's a couple of other guys there that are it's very kind of Bucs adjacent. And then you think Aaron Glenn and Todd Bowles are really good friends. Yeah. So this is one of those things where you kind of see some of the similarities of Aaron Glenn playing for and then coming up under Todd Bowles, and what you see the defense do as far as, especially with the safeties and stuff like that for the Lions. They're such a fun team. So I really hope that that's what we end up getting, because they deserve to make their first Super Bowl ever. This team was so close last year. And then Kansas City, though, I can never root against them. I've made that kind of a rule overall. Right. Game in and game out, maybe. I could see things starting to get weird. I had them losing that last game against the Bills, and I was okay, yeah, I think that this is going to be the time where the Bills actually get them in the regular season, but that doesn't matter until you get to the postseason, and I just won't bet against them in the postseason.
You know better than that, for sure. You mentioned Aaron Glenn. One of the best pictures of the entire year was just Aaron Glenn in the middle of the game yesterday, just chilling on the bench. When do you see a coordinator just chilling on the bench? But when your team is just firing on all cylinders, he is, they are, you get to do that. It's good. It's the new meme. It's the new NFL meme. Just the new name is going to be Denny Killingham. I'm definitely going to push that out into the stratosphere.
Okay, good.
Carmen Vitali, Fox Sports. Check out our podcast with our guy Trevor Sikkema as well. Carmi V on all social media platforms. We love you. We appreciate you. Continued success, my friend. Congratulations on getting engaged, and have a great Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, guys.
You're the best. The one and only Carmen Vitali. She's great, man. And just to see her being social media with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and now working for Fox Sports and TV, radio. She does a little bit of everything. Tampa Bay Lightning back in action tonight against the Colorado Avalanche at Amalie Arena, and we bring in LightningInsider.com's the one and only our good pal Erik Erlendsson. Double E, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. What's going on? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you. What's the latest from Lightning morning skate today at Amalie Arena?
Pretty much status quo from the other night. No Nick Paul. Nick Paul's going to be out, John Cooper said, for probably at least another week. It's obviously a busy schedule this week. You've got 4 games tonight, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Then they're off till next Thursday. So a little bit of extra time for Nick Paul to potentially heal up. So obviously it's a huge loss. Sometimes you don't realize how big of a hole somebody fills until that hole needs to be filled by somebody else. And so they missed Nick Paul. There's no doubt about it. So he didn't skate today. Other than that, looks like 7-11 again tonight. Andre Vasilevsky in net against a very tough Colorado team.
Yeah, what's been your takeaway over the last couple of games? I just kind of looking through this month. It's like 3 losses, 3 wins, 3 losses, 2 wins. Kind of the up and down of the season. But what was kind of the big thing that stood out to you the other night? I guess on a negative way, it was good to see Anthony Cirelli light the lamp a couple of times. But what was the issue with the team and why they came up short against the Dallas Stars?
It's something that's sort of been, I don't want to call it a theme, but something that has kind of plagued them a little bit here, where once again, they're in the third period of a tight game, whether it's tied or, they're up by a goal, that they can't close the deal. And it's, at this point, we're almost to Thanksgiving. It's kind of usually the first true benchmark of the season in terms of standings, but also in terms of how you're playing. And, for a team that has been so consistently good in the third periods, and when they were winning championships, they were a third period team. If they were down, they knew they could come back. If they were in a close game or if they were in a tie game, he just felt they were going to do the right things to get a win. And then if they had the lead, good luck trying to come back on them. Well, now they're making these mistakes that end up being the difference. And when you see a guy like Ryan McDonough, who made the mistake that led to the game-winning goal the other night, instead of putting a puck on net, he tried to force another play. And when this team tries to force plays too often, it usually comes back to bite them. That's exactly what happened. And, Coop had a great description after the game where he said, we tried to make 6 passes into the net. We turn it over. Dallas makes 2 passes. It's in the back of our net.
Right.
And those are the things that they have to start doing. And, John Cooper 2 weeks ago against the Philadelphia Flyers said that we're overcomplicating a simple game. Is basically what he said. We're overcomplicating an uncomplicated game because they're not generating enough shots towards the net. They're passing out of too many opportunities. And that was certainly the case again against Dallas. And I guess the good news is after watching them somehow pull a point out of that game against Columbus with, I don't know what that game was. Jeez. That was just a complete mess.
Burn the tape.
Yeah. And again, so they got a point out of that game, but they probably didn't deserve it. They didn't play well enough to deserve it. So at least they sorted some stuff out against the Stars, and they knew it. They knew Dallas is a very, very good team. They're probably one of the best rosters in the league that they have. So at least they kind of got their game back to a level where they know they're going to have to be. But if you're going to have a game tonight where you're going to not manage the puck very well, I mean, Colorado's transition just with McCarr and McKinnon alone will burn you if you're going to turn pucks over at dangerous areas of the ice, because you're going to be chasing those guys all night, and that's not an easy task.
Erik, who's been the one out of all the fresh faces this year, guys that are making their debut with the team in the 2024-25 season, that's impressed you the most?
Well, probably JJ Moser at the end of the day. We're aware of who Jake Gensel is and what he's capable of doing. We've seen it for years in the way that he can play, especially with top players. So, he's done as we'd expect. I don't think I'd call him a surprise. But a guy like Moser, where you don't get to see him that much because he was playing in the Western Conference. He's only been in the league for a couple of years. So, they've only faced him 4 times. And to watch that guy night in and night out now, with some of the smart plays that he makes and the smart reads that he makes, you see the offensive numbers and, you can see what he's capable of in the offensive zone. But, especially with defensemen, you got to watch how they work in their own zone because that's their main responsibility. And, the way he cuts off plays, the way that he disrupts plays. He's not a big guy by any means.
Right. No, he's
so
not.
He finds different ways to be effective in snuffing out plays. So, again, I'm not comparing him to Anton Strawman, but when Anton Strawman made the move here from the Rangers, and everybody knew Strawman's a pretty good defenseman, but until you see guys like that play night in and night out and understand how they work on a consistent basis, you get a deeper appreciation for how they play. And I think Moser probably falls into that category, especially since he's playing as offside for the most part on the right side with Victor Hedman. Didn't play the right side much at all last year. He did say he played some right the year before, but it's not his natural position. It's not his natural side. And for him to come in and given them the minutes that he has, he's been very good.
Yeah, and I look at him. It's not so easy to play with Victor Hedman, is it?
No,
that's
not.
The thing is we've seen it in the past, and not that we're not throwing shade at anything, but like they've tried Erik Chernak playing with Victor Hedman, and it has not worked. And no. It's nothing against Hetty. It's just sometimes it's like water and oil, and you very rarely see Victor Hedman play with Erik Chernak. That's just not a combination that you see very much. I mean, you've seen guys like Jake Dotchin work over there, right? We've seen guys, even at times, I don't think Strawman always worked over there. It was weird, right? Because you think like, all right, he's going to come over, everything's going to be fine. I mean, sometimes we saw Sergachev over there, right? Victor is one of those guys, and this is what I love. I saw a couple weeks ago. Victor is a guy, and you know this, he's like, he goes around, he's like an S sometimes. He's just staying on the left side. And JJ Moser was on the right side, and he almost gave Victor a shove, like, go over there, go to your spot, which you don't always see, but that's why I got like Jan Ruda works so well, right? Yep. He's not going to freak out. Oh my God, I have to over. And it's weird how McDonough and Chernak work so well because they kind of just do their thing, right? And they're just so compatible, but it didn't work so much with Chernak and Hedman. But Moser, I'm surprised by it that so early on in his tenure with the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's just like he's taken to it like a fish to water, playing alongside a guy that's not always so easy to play against.
Yeah, because I mean, the best way to describe Victor sometimes is he's a rover, right? He roves all over the ice. Because he can gobble up so much ice. I had many conversations through the years with Rick Bowness, who's certainly seen his fair share of players in the NHL. I always used to rave about Victor and the amount of ice that he could cover in a short period of time with those long strides and, that Swedish style of skating where they just kind of glide across the top of the ice. So he's hard to read off of sometimes. And that's what makes it difficult for others to kind of work with him. And that's why Ruda was such a good fit, because he understood how to play with Victor, because you're not just playing your position, you're playing with a guy over there who doesn't freelance, but sometimes he can kind of be where you don't expect him to be because of the way he sees the game. So that's why certain guys worked well with him. So yeah. And, I have a story up on the site that I wrote earlier this season about Moser coming over and what he did to try and get ready to join this team, and specifically the opportunity to play with Victor Hedman. So he watched film on Victor and, to kind of see how he's played. And certainly there was a lot of conversations during training camp, and, and Victor was the same way. He didn't really know JJ Moser that well. So him and Rob Zettler was the same way. It was interesting talking to Rob Zettler, who coaches the defense, about how, he watched some tape on him and he talked to people, but he didn't really want to have too much of a picture of who JJ Moser was. He wanted to come in and see it firsthand, to get a feel for it. So he's been a pleasant surprise. You think back here again to the trade that Julian Breezeball made, as much as it hurts to see a guy like Mikhail Sergachev be moved and traded away and everything that Sergei did while he was here, to get back a defenseman the caliber of Moser, and you got a Connor Geekie in the same trade. I mean, you filled two spots, by trading one player and two guys who have come in and contributed pretty well.
Yeah, what do you make of Geekie too? Because I feel like at times you saw it in the Columbus game where he scores the goal late, right there in the middle of the ice. I don't think he's going to be sent down. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be in the middle six forwards, which is what the Lightning had hoped. But I just wonder long term, like where he's going to fit in. Not that I don't think it's going to be a top 6 role, but I just wonder where he's going. Like, who's he going to play with? Because we know that the Lightning love the combos, right? So we know Point and Kucherov are going to be together. We know that Cirelli and Hagel are going to be together for the most part, right? We know those things do change, but where does Geekie go? Because it seems like Gensel's going to play with the top guys. He's not going anywhere for a while. Is it going to be Geekie eventually when everything settles in, when Nick Paul comes back, that Geekie will probably be that second line winger with those guys?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think with him, you just got to let him continue to feel comfortable and grow, and then see where things are going to shake out after that. It looks like he has some pretty good chemistry with Gonçalves. Mm-hmm. They've played a lot together here. A little bit was Gonçalves that set him up for that game-tying goal in Columbus on the power play, his first career point for Gage. But we saw Geekie play well with Nick Paul on the wing, right? Mm-hmm. And Paul was in the center and Geekie. So eventually he's going to be a top 6 forward in some capacity, and whether that is moving him to the middle and maybe Cirelli bumps down to a third line center, which is a role he's probably the ideal type of third line center. I know he's been playing second line center minutes here for the last couple of years for this team, but he's if in a perfect world that's probably where he slots in. So maybe Geekie slots into second line center, and so there's the good news is we're having this conversation, so that the depth that maybe they didn't have last year is there, right? Because you can have a guy like Geekie play, third line, second line. You have a Nick Paul who can play second line, third line, and everything like that. So eventually he's going to be a center in this league. The more he gets comfortable with everything, and look, with rookies, especially 20-year-olds who make the jump straight from junior to the NHL, it's a big jump. It's a big jump going from playing against other 18, 19, 20-year-olds to playing against the Nathan McKinnons and the Cal McCarrs and, these bigger guys on a nightly basis. It's a much different animal to try and get accustomed to. So everything that they've asked him to do to this point, I think tonight's game number 20 on the season, so we're about a quarter of the way through. He's done exactly what they've asked him to do. And that's all you can ask from him. Can you give him a little more? Can you give him a little bit more? And he's taken everything that they've given him. And he's even gotten an opportunity to jump up on the top power play unit a couple of times, especially those few games where Braden Point was out. So he's going to be a big part of this team moving forward, but who he plays with, it's a good question.
Yeah, I want him there. I mean, I think that's the next step in the evolution, is having him on that top power play unit. I want to see Braden in his spot. I want to see Cooch go back to where he's got it. Like, if Cooch is going to play on the left side, all right, fine. If he's going to go back to the right side, but like, I just feel like Geekie's skill set, because he can shoot the puck. Like, he's a guy that can really rifle it. And Hagel's not that guy for me. He's not a guy that can shoot the puck with that type of velocity. He's more of a wrist shot from deep guy rather than a slap shot from deep guy. Down low, he's a great at puck retrieval, but I mean, that's Jake Ensel's job, and I think he's probably one of the best guys in the league to do that. So it's kind of redundant. I don't want him moving from that spot. Where Hedman and Pointer are going to be. So I hope that Geekie gets more of an opportunity on that top power play unit to play on one of the wings, because I think you can kind of see him take that game to the next level. You mentioned Anthony Cirelli. Somebody texted something to me after he scored a second goal the other night of, this is the guy that, he's finally becoming the guy, or he's always been this guy. It's weird because I feel like he's like a 2.5 line center. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, he's just one of those guys where he's probably better than a third line center, but he doesn't score enough to be a second line center. I always use the guys like I always use David Krejci as that example, right? The perfect second line center. If you need to moonlight as a first line center while your guy gets banged up for 3 games, he can do that. And Cirelli can, but we're also looking at a guy, Double E, that's never scored 50 points in a season.
Yep.
Right. You need that second line center, 60, 65 points, something like that. He's never got to 50. He's at, I think, 21 now, which is a positive sign. But can he take that? Can he become more of a prolific scorer? Maybe not on the goal side, but just all around this deep into his career? Because, it's not like it's his second year in the league, right? He's been here. He's a double-time champion. I wonder what his ceiling is, if we've reached it, or if this year could be that step towards him becoming that guy, can be a legit second line center.
Well, we're trending that way.
Yeah.
Right. For the first time in his career, You can say he's trending in that direction. But I don't know if you're going to get if he hasn't cracked 50, what makes you think he can get to 70?
Right.
Which is kind of the area you probably need him to be at with the minutes he plays. And look, he's a terrific shutdown center. He's one of the best shutdown centers in the league. There's no doubt about it. But his style of play does not lend itself to high offensive numbers, right? He's the motor. He's the forechecker. He's the puck winner, right? He's the guy that does that. He's not the creative type of center that, you typically have in that role. So, and that's not to say, look, I love Anthony Cirelli. This is not a, putting Anthony Cirelli down. It's just, this is just what his game is. And can he get there? Look, he's off to a great start. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I can guarantee you it's probably the best offensive start he's had to his career through this point of the season. Just last year was the first year he cracked 20 goals in a season. So that kind of gives you an idea. So I don't know how much higher of a ceiling he has because, at this point in your career, you're kind of who you are.
Right.
Right. So that's why I say he's almost the ideal third line center. And, and I don't wonder too, the rosters for the Four Nations Cup are coming out here in a couple of weeks, and Anthony Cirelli is going to be a top candidate to potentially be on that. Look who the head coach. Look who. Oh, absolutely. Hey, look who his coach is.
Yeah.
Okay, he's the coach of Canada. And as Brian Engblom pointed out to me the other night, well, Pete DeBoer is on that staff. He just watched Anthony Cirelli do what he did in that game. Jim Nill, who's the general manager of the Stars, just watched Anthony Cirelli do what he did against the Stars the other night. He's part of, the think tank that puts it together, and they need a shutdown type of center. You can't have just the 20 best players, right?
Yeah,
it's the Herb Brooks approach.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, talking to some of the guys in the Toronto media, there's a pretty good chance I think Anthony Cirelli has a better than even chance to be named to this roster because you can't just have, McDavid and McKinnon. You got to have guys.
You can't have 4 first lines.
Right. You got to have somebody who can accept a role where they're only going to play maybe 10 minutes a night. And your job is to shut down Austin Matthews, or your job is to shut down Jack Hughes. Right. Or shut down Sasha Barkov. I mean, you have to have a guy in that role. So that's why I think Cirelli has a good chance of being on this roster. I mean, look, Rob Zaminer made the 98 Olympic teams for Canada because he was that type of a player. So it's not outside the realm of possibility to think that. And I don't know if this is incentive for Anthony Cirelli. I have not had this conversation with him. Knowing him, he's not going to say it is whether it is or not. His job, he knows what his job is. But it's something that could ultimately be in the back of his mind.
That's so crazy. We could be cheering for Austin Matthews against John Cougar and Anthony Cirelli. Erik Erlendsson, follow him.
And Braden Point.
Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. That's Erik _Erlendsson. That's a K, not a C, 2 S's after the D. Appreciate it, brother. I'll miss you. I'm going to, I'll be gone for Thanksgiving. So give my love to the family. Have a great turkey day. Enjoy the games this week. And I'll see you next week, pal.
Yeah, man. Have a safe trip. Tell everybody I said hi and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too, pal. Appreciate it. The one and only Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. All right. Told you a little while ago that there was a new letter that was sent out from the Pinellas side county commissioner trying to let the Rays know, hey, December 1st, make a decision here. So to really get an interesting perspective, we're going to go to the Hillsborough side. Hillsborough County Commissioner, our good friend, the Hitman, Ken Hagan, joining us from his hotel room. What's up, Hitman? How are you?
Hey, Jay. How you doing, brother? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you sound great, man. Thank you so much for making some time today. You and I don't know if we've mentioned this when I was with DAE. I think we might have, but you and I go back even before my radio days because I met you through my buddy Jay Evans, who you played ball with growing up, and we were recognized by the Hillsborough County Commissioners. We won the 2011 Pony World Series out of North Tampa, and we were up in front of the county commissioners, and that's how we initially met back in the day. So that was 13 years ago. That was before I even thought about getting into radio. So it's kind of funny how our paths have kind of intertwined over the years. But Ken, I always appreciate your perspective on this entire thing because you are a county commissioner, but you're a baseball guy. Like you and I have talked baseball for so many years, and it's just so. Well, before we get into the minutia of this entire thing, is it weird that we're at this spot? I talked to some West Tampa guys. I feel like baseball was born in West Tampa, here in the Tampa area, and they're just so sick of this entire thing that we're not talking about our Tampa lifers going to games and the times that we're talking about things like this, and it's kind of sad that this is the point that we're at, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, and like you, baseball's in my blood. Grew up playing since the age of 6, I believe, through high school and college, and was a Rays season ticket holder for the first 5 years before I was elected to office. And then the wife said I had to give up the season tickets at that time, along with some other season tickets, except for my Gator season tickets.
There you go.
I'll say, but like you, it's in my blood, and it's just so frustrating to having gone through this for about 14 years now, championing the team. Should be in Tampa and Hillsborough County, and it shouldn't take this long. And I say that I have personally visited every single major league ballpark but one, except Arizona. Again, just a huge baseball fan. I've spoken to many CEOs and baseball folks in different administrations or in different teams. And I can tell you specifically one with the Braves. I sat down with their CEO. It's been several years ago now, but they brokered their deal, the new ballpark and the battery which surrounds it, in 2 months. And then 2.5 years, opening day. So it doesn't need to take this long. And that's what, such a frustrating thing about this whole thing, not only as an elected official who's been championing the team to come to Tampa, but just as a baseball fan. We should have this settled a decade ago. And unfortunately it hasn't been, but I think we're getting real close. So
I had Chris Latvala on last week, Pinellas County, and it was a good conversation, man. And he's one of those guys that he was staunch against the deal. And I me, I always want to hear every viewpoint, right? It's easy for me to be, as a baseball guy, like, yeah, just get it here, screw you if you don't agree. But I want to hear what's your reservations? Why do you not approve of this? And he gave me some information, and it's hard to, he's speaking for his constituents, right? And it's hard to argue with that aspect of it. But the one thing that stood out to me, Ken, was that he said it pretty clear as day. I trust Matt, I trust Brian, I trust Ken Welch, even though we don't agree with everything, St. Pete City, the mayor, but he's got that reservation about Stu. And it's so easy because anytime something goes wrong with the Rays, everybody always wants to blame Stu. It's the low-hanging fruit. But I think it speaks volumes when you have a county commissioner just really come out and say that, because usually it's, a little closer to the vest. You want to be a little bit more diplomatic and but to be so transparent about that, I feel like more and more people politically now are coming out and not trusting the Rays and Stu Sternberg. And it gets, how does something like this going to get done if there's no trust? There's got to be trust between your partners, no?
Well, that's paramount. And again, I'm not going to speak for Commissioner Latvala, right, other than to say, I understand, again, from an elected official's perspective, your number one goal and priority should be to protect the taxpayers and not to get in a situation that it's going to, be on the backs of taxpayers. And unfortunately, we all experienced 2 unforeseen hurricanes, and St. Pete and Pinellas County, they were crushed, and they've got a lot of needs, a lot of priorities. So I don't question anyone's motivation or their reason for doing it. I certainly don't blame the St. Pete City Council or the Pinellas County Commission for wanting to simply delay for a couple of weeks. I mean, that's perfectly reasonable. And to be honest with you, this issue really shouldn't have come up during campaign season or during an election season. Let me start with that, because any major issue, there's so many unknowns. There's so many, again, you're in the midst of a campaign. People want to say one thing, use it against you. An issue of this magnitude really should have been completed or finalized early in the spring, maybe summer at the latest, because ultimately what happens is you think you're at the finish line, you have an election, and then you have 2 new commissioners that are suddenly elected, and their very first meeting out of the box, you're asking them to vote on over $300 million bond issue. So I don't blame anybody for saying, hey, let's take a little bit more time in doing that. So I don't think we should criticize them for that. I think that's perfectly reasonable and should take place. But with respect to Stu, I've always said I get along great with Stu, with Brian All, with Matt Silverman. They've been, very kind to me. I'd like to think I have got a very good relationship with them.
Right.
I don't always agree with their moves, such as the split season aspect, and I told them to their face from the very beginning, I oppose it. This is a bad idea. But I like them. I respect them. However, I will say, having dealt with and negotiated with Jeff Vinnick and the Lightning, with the Glaziers and the Buccaneers, I will just say it's challenging at times. I'm not going to say a trust issue or anything like that because I haven't experienced that. I'll just say it can be extremely challenging. So from that perspective, I can understand where Commissioner Lotvala may be coming from. I have not spoken to him, but it's not always the easiest to work with. And again, just the sheer fact that it's taken this long to ultimately get to an agreement, I would think suggests that, at times, at least initially, I will say, going back to the early years, the position of the team was the political leaders and the business leaders need to work things out. Well, up until a couple of years ago, the team never really had that sense of urgency to get a deal done. Now they do. And I recognize that. I think most folks should recognize that. But that wasn't the case. And I would suggest that most organizations, most communities, when they get to that point, everyone gets together and they all share that sense of urgency and works together. And for the longest time, it was just a challenge. So again, I'm not going to suggest a trust issue.
No, yeah.
I would say it's just it's challenging at times.
Yeah, and listen, I have a great relationship with those guys too. I mean, I've interviewed Stu on multiple occasions, and he's always been great to me. And again, I may not always agree with the way he goes about certain things, but it is what it is, right? Like, he's got business. I may not agree with his decisions, but he's a businessman. He's making a whole heck of a lot more money than I am, so he's made a lot of right decisions in that aspect. So it's just tough to be in this situation where we're at right now, where the Rays send, this letter out before the meeting last week. And now we're getting, I know you were driving. Did you get wind of the letter that was sent from the Pinellas County Board of Commissioners, Kathleen Peters?
I skimmed it. I haven't had a chance to read it in depth and to digest it, but I did skim it. And
the big thing was just, I think, at the end, where the Rays must either indicate in writing that they intend to move forward under the agreement as executed, or provide a clear notice of termination pursuant to the certain section of the agreement no later than December 1st. So they want an answer by December 1st on what the next step is in this entire process. Do you think we're going to get that? Because the Rays are got to be looking at this situation, and I get it. I mean, it's a business move. If the stadium is there, they don't want to get rid of, in writing, that they have that land around the stadium, right? That's a huge coup for them. Whether it was the right move, the wrong move, whether people think that's shady or not, like, it's a business move. And the fact that if they terminate the deal, that comes out of it, and then the people that may have some reservations may not put that in the deal, that's tough, because that's a huge part of the agreement that I'm sure the Rays ownership were like hanging their hat on, because if they do sell, right, at some point, they get to keep that land. Lotvala said in the beginning that was one of the things that kind of pushed them off of the deal, but enough people didn't have any issue with it. But now, because of how everything's going, people do have some kind of concern of like, wait a second then. And that's what more time does. More people kind of look through these things with fine-tooth combs. But do you think a deal will be done by December 1st? Because it's kind of tough, man. It's November 25th. It's getting late early.
Absolutely. And first of all, that's not only extremely relevant, but I think extremely critical point that you just made. And again, I want to, 100% transparency. I have not read their agreement or the understanding of their deal. So I want to say that. But just from an outside looking in, it somewhat appeared that there was a game of chicken being played on who was going to blink first, because as you suggested, should the Rays do that, then I guess they give up their development rights or their land rights that they have there. And it appears, again, from outside looking in, that this is ultimately going to be litigated, because I can't see it being finalized by December 1. But unless, again, if you read the one article that was written last week, I guess when Brian On was in front of I believe it was City Council. He referenced two different times settlement. He used that term settlement. And so it sounds like they do not want to trigger whatever would occur by terminating the deal. However, they would like to sit down and reach an agreement on, I guess, the revenue that's going to be lost as a result of playing at Steinbrenner Field and what has to happen there. So, again, from an outside looking in, that appears to be their, their course of action. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's ultimately litigated in some fashion.
So if it does get litigated like that, does that mean that the deal is done? Like you're saying, because every time you hear, as much as we try to read into it, I didn't go to law school, you know what I mean? But I try to do and try to read it as much as I can, try to follow along, bring on experts, try to answer a lot of the questions. But Ken, you know as well as I do, the majority of the people out there, they're seeing this on the surface, right? They're hearing things like the deal is done and litigation and things like that. And it's scaring people that the baseball team will not be here. So, and that's crazy to think, right? Because you and I know, and people say, oh, the attendance isn't there, and we can go back and forth. And you and I both agree that it would be a much different, or at least somewhat different, on the Tampa side. But we know, man, there's tens of thousands of baseball players, kids growing up that are placed. Look at Major League Baseball. You see Pete Alonso and Kyle Tucker that play right down the block from our house. Like, this isn't a place where baseball goes to die. But unfortunately, our Major League team it's on life support right now. How do you see a stadium being built on that side? And if you don't, what is the next step, do you think? Is it relocation? Do we look back in Tampa on the Hillsborough side? Like, where do we go after the litigation aspect?
Well, a couple things. My gut and instincts tell me that the stadium deal or ballpark deal is done. While it's not official, that's my gut. And at this point, the only thing that's yet to be determined is the development project itself. And does that move forward? How does that move forward without a ballpark? I know that the ballpark was a part of the original RFP that went out. So can you move forward with the current development team? Does that trigger a new RFP going out to again start from scratch and go from there? A lot of unknowns. My gut, my instincts say that the deal that was agreed to and approved by both bodies earlier this year, that deal as is done. Now, does that mean that they cannot sit down and renegotiate another deal? Absolutely not. I think from all parties, or at least from the team side and from Tampa and Hillsborough side, our primary focus today is ensuring a smooth and seamless transition for 2025 at Steinbrenner Field.
Right.
And recognizing that the team is going to experience significant financial losses this year. And candidly, we're sensitive to that. Mm-hmm. And the team ultimately chose Steinbrenner, not because it was in Tampa. It's because the capacity is the highest of any of the surrounding minor league ballparks, and it's the most MLB ready. So it will require very little, if any, infrastructure as far as not only access, but the clubhouses and things of that nature. There was even a Rays player a week or so ago, I can't remember who it was, that came out and said, yeah, that ballpark is fine the way it is it's Major League Baseball ready. And so that's why they chose that, because it will provide them the greatest opportunity to maximize their already limited revenues that they're going to generate this year. So that's why that decision was made. And that's all we're focused on. And I have to say and give props to the New York Yankees, Al Steinbrenner and Tony Bruno and their folks, because while Hillsborough County owned Steinbrenner Field, at the end of the day, it was the Yankees' call. Mm-hmm. And they said, they want to do what's best for Major League Baseball. And we're working closely with the Yankees, with the Rays, with MLB, again, to make that as smooth and seamless transition as possible. So that's our number one goal right now. But moving forward, I think at some point, and again, I'm personally being respectful of this process, have not spoken to the Rays, have not reached out, don't plan on doing so anytime soon. We're going to watch and see. And if or when it's officially terminated, then we're going to be ready on our side to have that conversation. Now, I don't know if that's going to be tomorrow, 6 months from now, or a year from now, but we're going to be ready to have that. I guess the one side of the fact that there's now going to be a delay, in some ways, I guess it provides a little bit of more little bit of additional time to have the conversation, because the longer we wait now, you inevitably, in all likelihood, going to have to wait till 2029
Right.
to have a ballpark wherever ultimately the site's chosen. But I feel very strongly, regardless of if it remains on the Pinellas side or Hillsborough side, that baseball is going to remain in Tampa Bay. I know from Major League Baseball's perspective, from Commissioner Manfred himself, who has personally told me on a couple of occasions that Tampa Bay is an extremely important market for MLB. And I believe you saw Commissioner Manfred issue a statement last week to that extent, essentially saying that, things are going to work out in Tampa Bay. So can't tell you which side of the Bay it'll ultimately end up in, but I'm still confident that baseball will remain here.
Ken, before I let you go, I know a lot of people have been asking me recently of a new stadium possibly for the Buccaneers at Raymond James, and if that would be independent of a new baseball stadium, would that preclude Hillsborough from jumping in if it opens up? Would that preclude knowing that maybe a new Raymond James or a new football stadium, would that prevent possibly Hillsborough getting in on a baseball side, or is that kind of independent of itself? And also, is there any kind of discussions about the Rays getting a new stadium? Because we just look at some of these palaces at the NFL games, it's pretty crazy, man. And Recher has gotten better over the years for sure.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, extremely valid point, and one that we cannot ignore because, again, I sit on the TSA, Tampa Sports Authority, work closely with Brian Ford and the Buccaneers. But at the same time, I've stated for the last several years, there's not going to be a new stadium anytime soon. However, there will be significant renovations that occur moving forward. Their lease agreement is up here very soon, and we've yet to have any conversations with the team, but we know that those are, imminent, that we will sit down and begin to have those conversations. We do know, while we do not know what their expectations are, we do know that it's in our interest to continue to maintain a state-of-the-art, technologically superior stadium if we want to continue to have Super Bowls, college football playoff, and these other major events. We do know that. And what a lot of folks don't recognize is the fact that, all the concerts that we have. I tell people, my friends of mine that aren't baseball fans or Buccaneer fans, I said, take the Bucs out of it. If you want the Beyoncé, the Taylor Swifts, the Kenny Chesneys, and the Savannah Bananas coming up, and all these other major events, it's in their contracts. They must play, or they will only play, NFL ready and state-of-the-art stadium. So if you want to continue having all these world-class acts, that we have to continue to upgrade our facilities. Now, of course, with that, we get long-term agreement for the team to remain here. We improve revenue sharing for us. We ensure, like the last renovation agreement, that the team has significant skin in the game. The Buccaneers put well over $100 million into the last renovation. They assumed all cost overrides. We improved our revenue sharing agreement with them. So it'll be a true public-private partnership. And we can anticipate or suggest certain things that they might want to do. But as right now, we have not had those conversations. Right. But I've made it very clear, we're not going to build a new football stadium anytime soon. At some point down the road, yes, but we're looking decades down the road, because I will tell you, the Sports Authority every year gets ranked in the top, not the Sports Authority, but Raymond James, the top 5 stadiums, even competing against the Jerry's World and Allegiant in Las Vegas, SoFi in LA. It's still ranked very high, even though it's certainly not to that caliber when you go into these facilities that cost $2 billion, $5 billion, but it's still a very nice stadium. But we do know we're going to have to make improvements. That does make it, or will make it, somewhat challenging in order, if we should ultimately end up, building a ballpark for the Rays in Tampa. And that's why we have to be extremely creative when we do that, as we were with the agreement that we had put together, or the financial option that we had put together last year, that relied primarily on user fees, entertainment districts, creating a CDD, tourist tax dollars, things like that. But no, it's a very valid point that there's a limited amount of tourist tax dollars out there, which is the primary source that we use for Steinbrenner, Ray J, Emily Arena. And I always have to point out, because the haters out there, scream or don't understand that these are taxes that are for the most part paid by tourists that have very limited uses. They cannot go for fire rescue or to build schools or for law enforcement. They have to go for stadiums, infrastructure, and/or to market or advertise tourism-related activities. So it's a proper source paid almost exclusively by tourists. They're not general revenue dollars, but it's a limited source. And candidly, that's one of the reasons why I believe the Rays chose Pinellas last year, because their tourist tax dollars are a lot higher than Hillsborough's because of the beaches and everything. And we understand that. We recognize that, even though they also recognize and acknowledge that they would earn $30 to $50 million more a year in Tampa. But so we have a limited, I guess, long answer to, we have limited tourist tax dollars to use toward ballparks or stadiums. And so we haven't ignored the fact that we're going to have Ray J improvements. We're going to have Amalie Arena improvements moving forward over the next few years. And so that forces us to be extremely creative with any potential Rays ballpark discussion.
Great stuff, as always. The Hitman, Ken Hagan, Hillsborough County Commissioner. Ken, always appreciate your time. Always great catching up with you, my man. Have a great Thanksgiving with you and the family, buddy, and we'll talk to you again soon, all right?
Anytime. Always great chatting with you, and anytime you want me to come on, happy to do it. Thanks, buddy.
You got it, man. The one and only Ken Hagan. God, love that guy, man. We've been, again, known him for a very long time, and very happy that he's got his ear to the ground, man, when it comes to all things in our Tampa Bay area. All right, final guest of the show. He's a record maker. He's a record breaker, a history maker, from walk-on to absolute USF, future USF Athletic Hall of Famer, the one and only Sean Atkins. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Doing good. How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me.
Man, I'm so happy for you, man. So happy for you. I mean, last year, remember I asked you the question, you told me the story about Coach Golish telling you, like, you have to sleep more. He's like, you got to sleep. Like, it was just some basic, like, real life stuff. And to see you Saturday go out the tunnel, pick up Coach Golish, like, it was a cool moment, man. Just talk about what he has meant to you, and what was it like to take the field there for the final time at Raymond James?
Yeah, man, he's just been such a mentor in my life, and me and him have such a great relationship. I go to him for anything, and I'm seeing everybody dap him up on their way out, and he just means so much to me. So I just had to go up and grab him and give him a big hug, and just tell him, how much I appreciate him and what he's done for my football career, and he's elevated me to the next, level, and I just appreciate that man way too much.
Sean Atkins, the history maker, the record breaker. Man, I tell you what, I know Coach Golish. I was at the facility the other day early in the middle of last week, and he's like, we just got to start fast. And then you start looking up and you're like, well, you scored again, and you scored again. And the Twitter timeline for USF football, I looked at it at halftime. It was like TD. What was it? Like, what did you guys do? Did everybody have a great breakfast? Did you have a great sleep Friday night? Like, you guys have struggled getting out of the gate sometimes this year, but holy smokes, against Tulsa, I mean, you put the smackdown on these guys in the first quarter. How'd you do it? Yeah,
just all week we've just been preparing for, like, we just have to start fast. Everybody at practice locks in at the beginning of practice. We just want to go out and, put touchdowns up on the board. We've been really starting out slow lately, and that was just a great testament to, like, all the hard work we've been putting in during the week, and then just coming out and starting fast. And I'm sure senior night had something to do with it too.
Yeah, for sure. And to see a guy like Bryce Archie out there, I thought it was one of the more accurate games that he had. I mean, he was really finessing some of those passes into there. I mean, what is it like in the middle of the season when Byram goes down and Bryce comes in, and that the offense has to change a little bit, right? Because it's so easy to say, oh, just put him in there. He should be able to do the same exact thing. It's one thing if there's very similar skill sets. Not saying that one guy can't do what the other can, but Byram runs a lot, and Bryce is a little bit more of a traditional pocket passer. How were you guys able to kind of stay on the same page and to just kind of keep at it to a point where that you're starting to really, you can see it these last couple of weeks are really starting to fire on all cylinders, and he seems a lot more comfortable in control of this offense.
Yeah, it was kind of just like a don't flinch mentality from the whole team, honestly. You know, Bryce is really confident back there. He's always been a leader. And just being able to see him grow, you know, over the weeks, getting a hard start at Memphis, you know, Hurricane comes in, and just kind of battling back. You know, he always wants to get better. You know, he's always talking to me on what I need to do on my routes for him to be on the same page, what I need to look for. And he's just been doing such a great job. And I feel like the whole receiver group as a whole has been selfless, the whole offense, honestly, the whole offense. And that kind of just helps him build confidence because nobody's like begging for the ball. You know, he can just kind of go out and play free and, you know, do him.
Yeah, I had Teron Keith on with me last week, and he just spoke so glowingly and lovingly about the running back room, and just there's such a selflessness, and you could see it. I mean, what is it like to be able to see whether it's Teron or Naquan or Kelly, and then hell, the last couple of weeks you've been putting a bunch of other guys, Isaias in there. I mean, what is it like to be able to have so many different running backs specifically that can just tote the rock so well and put you guys in a position to gain yards and score touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can go out and start for us. All of them are so dynamic in whatever way that they want to be on the field. There's not really a fall off. You have a complete confidence in every single one of those guys, and you're just waiting for one of them to make a play. You know how many times I've been out there where I was just been blocking, and then you just go, oh, there goes Kelly, or there goes Naquan, or you know what I'm saying? So, you know, just being able to see how hard those guys work and just being around them, honestly, it's just – you can tell that all of them love each other and they just love the game of football.
You said Naquan. One of my favorite moments in the last 10 years of USF is when Naquan ran over that defender last year against Alabama. Like, I could still feel it right now. Like, he just, boom, ran over that guy. When you see a play like that, I mean, just take us through, like, how do you not, like, freak out on the field? Like, you almost become a fan of one of your teammates in that moment, don't you?
Definitely. It honestly kind of tells you, though, like, oh, that's what we're on? All right, bet. Like, let's go. Next play. You know, like, I'm about to go do that now. You know, it kind of just locks everybody in, and, you know, you're a huge hype man for them whenever you get off to the side.
Yeah. What's the biggest difference between – take me back. Let's go week 1 last season, before the first game under Alex Golesh to now. Bowl eligible for the second year, almost 2 full seasons under Alex Golesh. From your perspective, what is the biggest difference from that week 1 in 2023 to today, November 25th, 2024?
Yeah, from week 1 last year, you know, it was kind of a whole bunch of like blind confidence in Coach Golesh and, you know, what his philosophy is and how he believes that the game should be played. And now all of us are on the same page, you know, like we know how we want to play. You know, our identity is starting fast, playing fast, you know, get the ball snapped. And Coach Golesh is just one of those guys that's going to be your best friend too. So, you know, he's going to call you out whenever you're not doing good and you respect it. You know, there's never a disconnect on what he's saying. And if he goes overboard, you know, he's going to come up. He's going to be the first one to apologize. And he's just such a great leader. And he really harps on just loving one another and playing for one another. So I would just say the biggest thing about it is just understanding how we want to play the game of football.
You know, it's funny. I know it was kind of like downplayed. It's just another game. But now that it's just like a month and a half later, like I drove up to Tuscaloosa for that game with you guys, covering that game in the press box, and 100,000 people there. Nick Saban, like, do you realize that like 30, 40, 50 years now from now, you're going to look back at that game and be like, I played a football game in front of 100,000 people. Like, do you realize, like, I mean, I know it's football and you're focused on what's in front of you. And I know you got to treat it, you know, in preparation like any other game. But I mean, it's a pretty historic venue. I mean, do you realize like some of the places you've played and some of the teams you've faced and you know what that means like in the history of college football?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's only so many percent of people that are able to experience that. You know, just being able to be a part of that is something special and something that all of us will remember for the rest of our lives.
What about these records, man? I mean, you're coming up with these catches and it's the countdown is on. I mean, what does it feel like to know that you're going to be in the history books and you're passing some of these names, like some of these guys that like Andre Davis, like that's a Tampa guy, man, through and through. I mean, what does it mean to have your name etched in the record books here at USF?
Yeah, I'm super grateful, you know, being up there with a lot of the guys, you know, that you've named and just all the guys that came before me, you know, that kind of set the foundation for what USF is for the fans, you know, everybody in Tampa that have seen it. And, I just want to leave my mark and my legacy and just be stamped in the history books as, one of those guys that just went out and did whatever that was needed for a win. And, just being able to be a part of that and, continuing my story is just something special to me and something that I cherish for the rest of my life.
I'd love to see in one of these last 2 games, you in one game, throw for a touchdown, run for a touchdown, and catch a touchdown. Maybe, and hey, let's not stop there. Punt return for a touchdown.
Dude, I need a punt return. I
mean, man, I tell you what, Tulsa, we were talking about their coverage before the game, and it was like, oh yeah, they've given up way more than they've had, but I thought their coverage was actually pretty decent in that game. The defense, obviously, they gave up 63, but so important for you to be able to just hold on the football and just take care of it in that situation. What do you have more fun, returning kicks or throwing the football?
Definitely throwing the football. I'm QB1. I'm QB1.
When you secure when you make a pass and you complete it, are you talking junk to Byram and the quarterbacks, letting them know what the deal is?
Oh yeah, I love telling them that I got the best touch on the team, and I'm always telling Golish like he needed to put me back there more.
Yeah, man, double reverse, flea flickers and all this crazy stuff. I want to ask you about kind of like looking ahead and looking at these next 2 games and the importance of focusing on the process, right? We heard that so much from Coach Golish, but how do you look at this process knowing that, like, hey, you got 2 games in front of you? Is it that much more difficult knowing that you have a bowl game ahead, or is it just kind of status quo, do what you've been doing?
Kind of just doing what we've been doing. We kind of had like a turning point as a team when we were 2-4, and we were just like, enough's enough. Like, let's just go out and play football, play for one another, and just kind of finish this game strong, like this season strong. And being able to go to a bowl game already, and then when next week you're 7-5, that's a great season, and then you go out and be 8-5, win bowl games. So that's kind of like where our team's head at, and we just got to go out and execute.
I wanted to ask either you or Kelly this question. I'm glad you hopped on with me today because you've been here for, God, man, 2019 is when you walked in. You saw 2 games, Wisconsin, South Carolina State. Think it back to that, man. 2019, like it's amazing, man. It's amazing. Your journey's been so just inspiring to people here in the Tampa Bay area. And I was thinking about this aspect. If you could take, because they were some lean years, trust me, brother, I was covering those games. So I was there, man. I know it was tough for you guys. It was, tough covering it. And I was working with the radio broadcast team too. If you could take one player from your early time at USF, 2019, 2020, 2021, that didn't get to experience the last 2 years of the Alex Golish days, who would you take from those early years so that they can join this group and be part of these, back-to-back bowls?
I'm definitely going to go with my main man, Xavier Weaver. I wish I had him with me out there on the field. Me and him got super close over the years that we were together, and, we kind of built off of one another, and I feel like he would have been something special in this offense. So that's probably the guy I would say.
I'm with you, man. I mean, they were some talent there at the wide receiver position. That is for sure. The X-Man was really, really good. Out of the team that you're on now, let's say you break down your car, you're driving in the middle of the night. You're going to call one person at 3 a.m. that is going to be awake, and they're going to come help you. Who is it?
I'm probably calling LD. I'm probably calling my receiver coach. He's always going to come through.
No, you can't. No, not coach. It's got to be a player. The coaches better be responsible than the freaking coaches. We got to call a player. Give me one guy on your team that would hook you.
I'm probably going to call Byram.
Yeah?
Byram. Yeah, Byram's always going to come through.
That's awesome, man. I know it's got to be tough for him being able to sit out, and he wants to get out there and play with the guys. What's your message to Bulls Nation, Sean? Because again, you've been so inspiring. People love cheering for you. The 38. When you do something on the field, it lifts the crowd, and you can hear it. You can hear the people, just going crazy and screaming your name and cheering for you. What's your message to Bulls Nation after such an incredible career that has 2 more games ahead of you?
Yeah, I just want to say how much I respect, Bulls Nation as a whole. You guys have kind of open arms, kind of just took me in, and, I feel that energy out on the field, and I just love the energy that you guys bring at Ray J. Everybody on the team feels it. We talk about how special it is to, have a home crowd like you guys, and just being able to put on for the city of Tampa. It's been nothing but amazing. So I appreciate y'all, and 38. Loves y'all, I guess.
He sure does. 38, Sean Atkins, the walk-on to the history maker, the record breaker. Follow him on all social media platforms. Sean Atkins with the little what's the double S about for the social media?
Oh, that was the only name that would fit. Honestly, I was trying to be creative.
I like it, man. It's like your handle's got like a stutter kind of thing, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I like it, man. You got to stick out, man. You got to do something different. Well,
Right.
Sean, it's been a hell of a career for you at USF, watching you do your thing at Ray J. Good luck this weekend against Rice and in the bowl game. We'll talk to you again down the road, man. Best of luck and congratulations on all your success.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it, buddy. The one and only number 38, USF wide receiver, the history maker, the record breaker, Sean Atkins. What a show we had for you guys today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And yes, looking at my guy Sergio, love a local show. I'm tired of the national shows. Yeah, that's just the way it goes, man. That is just the way it goes. And again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. No ill will to DAE or iHeart. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. You got to make the best business moves. It is what it is. You may not agree with it, but I'm not going to cry over it. No spilled milk here. I'm still going to do my thing. I am still going to talk Tampa Bay sports for you at noon right here on the J Recher podcast. But again, I can't stress this enough. Please, please support your local media. Support all your local businesses, whether it's my friends at Ingrained Apparel, where I got this badass shirt, Tampa Bay made. My guy, Ian Beckles, over at the Dignitary Tea and Kava House there, 4817 South West Shore. Me here on all the things I do on social media at J Recher. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Every little bit helps. I'm going to be doing some more stuff with, hopefully more stuff with my guy Ian Beckles, maybe some stuff with USF and the Lightning. This is why you want to follow me. And if you want to sponsor, if you want to advertise on the J Recher podcast, because we are going daily at noon in 2025. If you want to advertise with the J Recher podcast, reach out to me on social media, get in those DMs at J Recher, and let's have a conversation, because we are only going to get bigger. I'm at my house now. We're going to hopefully do some on-location broadcasts. We're going to bring in more and more guests. You see the roster. You see the guests that I bring to these shows. Now, is it going to be 7 guests when we do the show every day? No, but it'll be 2, 3, 4. Hell, it might be 7. You never know. But all these relationships that I've been able to foster over the years, I'm going to utilize them to make sure that you guys get the best local news here between 12 and 3 every single day, because you deserve it right here in the Tampa Bay area. No show on Friday. I'll be back live next Monday, going up to New York for the Thanksgiving holiday. I hope everybody has a great holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. We'll see you all next time right here on the J Recher podcast.